On December 9th, 2025, I received a legal demand letter from lawyers representing Congressman Dan Crenshaw.
I have never said anything publicly about Shawn Ryan. He's just going off about me. Is there a back and forth? No. He just mentions me out of the blue.
They got Steve Aoki DJing their 40th birthday party. How does that happen?
And I'm so rich that I paid for Steve Aoki to DJ. It's like, okay, no, I didn't. And I texted him privately. You know, you can just reach out to your fellow team guy if you have questions about how I'm quote unquote getting rich. And he says that that text was a threat to him to beat him up. What? The third time I reach out to him privately is a lawyer letter because you're accusing me of criminal activity. Obviously you want this conflict because it's good clickbait.
This video, it's about Shawn Ryan blowing up the internet last night, talking about me.
The idea that like all press is good press, that's true for some of these guys. Have some respect for your own audience, for God's sakes. Like, stop lying to them. I was 2 hours from my flight to go to Nashville on the 1st, and we see this video come out.
Everybody that's been on this show since around episode 10 has signed a release form. Dan and his attorneys, they don't want to sign the release form.
Your lawyer said on Monday, we'll send the updated language. You never sent us anything to sign. Nothing.
Why not sign it and send it so you can say, hey, I signed your agreement and I sent it to you. It had everything.
Now we're nitpicking, like, in hindsight. Like, you're trying to make, I know you really, like, you're trying really hard to make this my fault somehow.
No.
It's like, it's not.
I don't
like, I didn't try to get out of this at all. The point was never to sue him. The point, it's like, I never said I was going to sue him, by the way. Like, I can't ever point to one single thing I've said where I'm going to sue Shawn Ryan. Like, that's his words, not mine. It's really easy to hate the politician.
At this point, would you still sit down with him?
Since the Civil War, dogs have stood alongside our military, proving to be indispensable partners. Our military prioritized ensuring proper canine nutrition for optimal performance, recognizing its vital role in mission success. Team Dog embodies that standard, offering science-based, customizable meal plans tailored to your dog's unique needs. Developed by a former Navy SEAL and canine trainer, Team Dog Food ensures the highest quality nutrition for our canine companions. Improve your dog's well-being. Be your dog's hero with Team Dog.
Dan Crenshaw.
Hey, Mike, good to be with you.
Welcome to Mic Drop.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Why did you get into politics?
First, I'll answer that in the way I answer it for students. I talk to a lot of students, and they'll ask a question like, "How do I get involved?" And I'll kind of give them a generic answer. Well, there's policy and there's politics. There's a relation between the two, of course. There's an overlap, but they're different. And my intent was never to get into politics. I was always a policy. Policy was my interest. My undergrad major was in international relations, and then a minor in physics, which had nothing to do with anything, but figured why not. And my master's degree was a public policy degree. So then I never wanted to leave the SEAL teams either. So, so all of these things combined, I was a policy guy who never wanted to leave the SEAL teams. And then all of a sudden I was in politics. And so the story there is, I'm forced to leave the teams because, you can't pass a dive physical, technically speaking. Now, I would argue with the doctors who refuse to check that box about a hollow orbital, but can't technically pass a dive physical. So I couldn't technically deploy, even though I was. And this was eventually was a battle between Warcom and Big Navy. Okay, and we lost that battle. The Army's much better about getting wounded guys back in. The Marines are better about it. The Navy doesn't know how. Anyway, so I was wounded in 2012. I was medically retired in 2016 because I fought the system for that long, and eventually it just didn't make sense to keep trying to fight it. So medically retired, did my master's at Harvard Kennedy School, and was looking for a policy job, not a politics job. I didn't know what that meant really. I'm still not even sure I know what it meant, but in my mind, I wanted to continue serving in the national security policy kind of role. In government, and I was looking for that. And in the midst of looking for that, I was just at a kind of a random coffee meeting, as you would do, as you would network, trying to find whatever your next path is. And he was a good friend of mine now. He was a staffer for Senator Cotton at the time. And He's like, well, why don't you just run for Congress? And I'm like, oh, just run for Congress just like that, huh? And it's not like I'd never thought about it, but I thought about it maybe in terms of like 10, 20 years after lots of more experience in government. And I wasn't looking at politics. I certainly wasn't looking at who was running where, because that's the politics side. Like, who's running where? What is the PVI of that district? You know, meaning it's an R+10 or a D+10. Like, who's retiring? All of these things are the kind of things you would think about. And so he just asked me like what my home district was, and I told him it would be Texas 2. And so he looked it up real quick on his phone. Said, "Oh, Ted Poe announced my predecessor, Congressman Ted Poe announced retirement yesterday." It was just this weird like confluence of events that, and 3 days later, we're like made the decision and went and moved back in with my parents, and started a really poorly run campaign from my parents' game room back in Houston. So that's sort of how it happened. And like, I guess why do it? Because if you're from the political angle, there's costs and benefits. The cost is, we're going to talk about a lot of the costs today. They're pretty obvious what the costs are. You know, having a high name ID and going on Saturday Night Live is a double-edged sword. You know, you become clickbait for all sorts of things we're going to talk about. But the benefits are, you know, versus just a policy route. A policy career will keep you out of the spotlight, so you don't have any of that to worry about. But you're really only focusing on one thing, and your influence is what it is. At least if you're in politics, well, you have a vote. That's something. You have a platform, and you can also spread your influence across a variety of issues that you care about. You go to Congress, it's like going to college. I mean, there's literally a freshman class and freshman orientation, and then, you know, you pick your office. So it's like, I liken it to like picking dorm rooms. You're meeting your new class, the whole thing. And then you're kind of picking your major too, you know, and by major, I mean committee assignments. And so my majors are healthcare policy, environment, energy policy. These are things that are important to the Houston area, of course. And then anything national security related, foreign policy, you know, a lot of the, you know, that's just my background, of course, and a lot of what I studied. So I'm on the Intelligence Committee, chairman of the Defense Intelligence Subcommittee. And so that portfolio is everything from DIA to NRO to NGA to anything that's military intelligence programs. So it's a bit of a wide array, but it's you choose politics because you can be more influential in those areas. You know, is that a long term? Is that sustainably long term? I don't know.
I mean, I certainly understand that. I guess I'm curious, you know, was there a specific catalyst or like almost a light switch moment of you saying, obviously there are costs, maybe you don't know how significant they are prior to doing it, but you know that they're there, they're not insignificant. And so to me, like from a kind of fundamental principle standpoint, was there I want to get into politics, I want to run because of this?
Well, the issues are easy because, again, I was already a policy guy, so there's plenty of reasons to run. Specifically for my district, it was flood mitigation. So this is all happening. The story I just told you is happening right off the heels of Hurricane Harvey. You know, my district, or my old district, my first district, it's changed. The lines have changed quite a bit since then. By far the most badly hit part of Harvey, whether it was the western part of the district or the Lake Houston area, you know, 6 feet of water in people's homes. So flood mitigation issues, that's local, state, and federal. My job was to focus on the federal side, and I've done a lot of that. Continue to do that. That's a huge part of what I do, even though it's like not what I'm known for, but it's known back home. And then border security back then, especially, you know, and just fighting that culture war, really. And I think it took us a while to win that culture war. You can't get the policies right until you win the culture war. That's sort of a fundamental of basic civics. And I think one of the reasons President Trump was elected again was on this border security issue. And one of the reasons is because I think we've all hammered that issue so much to where people finally were starting to get it. I remember when I was first running, it was not obvious to me that at least independents and Democrats would even consider it an issue. It took a while. So those are the big issues that we ran on and continue to run on. My focus has been driven more to the cartels since then because, well, obviously involved in our border security. People say we don't have control of the border. I'm like, oh, somebody does. And it's a mix of cartels that battle for these plazas, basically crossing points on the border. And so getting at the root of the problem has been a huge huge focus of mine the last few years. And gosh, back in 2021, I was the first to introduce legislation to authorize use of military force on cartels, and just to wake people up to it. That was kind of a main purpose of that. We could get in more detail about like what that battle actually looks like and how it's changed over the years. It's an interesting topic, but I could go down a long list, right? Energy issues. We want to be energy dominant. So a lot of what I've done over the years is kind of battling back this climate crisis narrative about how we all need to move to must be renewables, right? Like this is how we've won this culture war too, because the left would just be obsessed with wind and solar, only wind and solar, and we're like, well, if carbon emissions are your thing, then what about carbon capture? What about exporting more natural gas? Which when you do that, we have a lot of natural gas in the U.S. Between Texas and Pennsylvania. Well, when you export more natural gas, what do? You displace coal in foreign countries. That should be a goal. Wouldn't that make sense? No. Okay, what about nuclear energy? Like, what if we found this rock called uranium and we put it under a lot of pressure and then it just created clean energy for 25 years? Wouldn't that be something? And nuclear energy had like no place at these like UN climate conferences, but there was a group of us who would go and make that case and make it over and over again. And slowly we've seen that narrative shift also. It's like, oh, okay, nuclear is okay now. A long list of policy issues that I actually care about a lot. Again, you have to be a politician to be able to influence a wide array. If you're not a politician, you've got to choose one and go down that track. There was no aha moment except the moment I told you about. It was like, because politics really is about opportunity. You can want to run all day long. It depends on where you're from, what your district's like. There's so many factors onto whether it's even a possibility. And this opportunity, it just kind of hit me in the face. I laugh because I guess a lot of the changes in my life have been because of getting hit in the face. This was one of them. And it was possible because it was only a few months. This happened. This conversation happened in like November of 2017, and the election is March of 2018. So it's a few months. We can afford a few months not getting a job. If it was 12 months, which would be the normal runway, it wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't have been an option. I would have just said no. So it was just the right timing.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have accomplished the things that you set out to change that drove you to join the political establishment?
The flood mitigation's been a huge one. Because that saves people's lives and property. And I'm really proud of that. We've been able to bring about $200 million worth of projects back to the district. This is simple stuff like dredging, just widening and deepening channels, building detention ponds, which just means digging stuff into the ground. It's expensive. It costs money, and you're always working with local government as well. They're the ones who kind of put out the distress signal. My job is to make sure that money gets there, and so we've done that, and we'll continue to do it because you're never really done with flood mitigation issues in the Houston area.
I would like to talk a little bit about temperament, specifically with a number of instances where, at least from a headline standpoint, I'm not naive to the fact that clickbait exists. There's a number of angles and outlets that will grab at anything to try to make something out of nothing. Having said that, there's kind of a list of occurrences, instances that you've been involved in that, from my perspective, and I think a lot of, whether they're your constituents or just people that want America represented by congressmen across the board who showcase the set of values, the temperament, the kind of stoic nature of stability that I think most people would want any and all of our leaders to possess, find either troubling or that maybe some of that is lacking. I would love to get your take on it, and I'll just kind of go down the list because there's a few of them that I'd just like to hear your take on. The Mexico and the CIA thing
Oh yeah, let's talk about that.
And some of these are, temperament in terms of, decision-making process. Some of them are stances on issues that I think a lot of people that consider themselves conservatives wouldn't say aligns with how they feel. A comment made about completely justified anger during the Black Lives Matter stuff, border security, advocating for a bipartisan border security bill that would allow 5,000 illegal immigrants into the country every day.
Let's hit these one by one.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just go down the list quick, and then we'll hit them one at a time. But the insider trading thing, I've looked into that quite a bit, and I understand, or to me, I don't see it as what I think a lot of people do, which, I'm happy to concede that, or say I understand, I think, where it came from and what it actually is. The illegal donation stuff, being fined $42,000 for accepting illegal donations. Some of the hot mic moment stuff, whether it's with Tucker Carlson, some of the stuff going back and forth with Shawn Ryan, some of the stuff going back and forth with Eddie Gallagher, et cetera. I think a lot of people see you as a representative and see what they would consider a pattern of behavior that is maybe more unbecoming than they would like to see. And I would love to just kind of get your representation of those things, if you want to start with the Mexico CIA thing.
Yeah, because
you already know members of Congress trade stocks. You've probably seen websites that track it. Maybe you've even scrolled through them yourself. Why aren't you making money from it? Seriously, if they can do it, you should do it. The data's been public for years. Pelosi's trades are all out there. Dozens of other lawmakers' trades are also out there. So why isn't everyone who knows about this doing the same thing and getting rich? I'll tell you why. It's because those websites are a fire hose. Thousands of trades, no context, no filtering. Nancy Pelosi bought Google, cool. Someone else sold defense stocks, okay, now what? What do you actually do with that information? Here's what most people miss. Not every congressional trade is an insider trade. Some of these people are just buying index funds or doing what their advisor tells them. The edge isn't seeing the trades. The edge is knowing which trades actually have that inside information behind them. That's the problem Wolf of Washington solved. They built a full research desk, that's PhD level analysis, who go through every single trade and map the insider connections. Does this lawmaker sit on a committee that regulates said company? Have they voted on legislation that affects the sector? They met with the executives, taken lobbying money, have family ties to the industry. They build a complete profile, and only the trades with documented insider logic get flagged and sent to the members. I'll give you a couple of real examples. Pelosi bought Google, they flagged it and sent up the alert. It's up 112% in under a year. Marjorie Taylor Greene bought AMD during the tariff dip, called in real time, up 161%. Josh Gottheimer bought Raytheon while sitting on the Defense Committee, flagged, and up 46%. Cleo Fields bought Open Door. Members got that alert. Guess what? It's up 233% in 5 months. These aren't hypotheticals. These are the alerts that are sent when the trades happen. That's why their numbers look the way they do. 35% average annual returns, a 74% win rate on trades held 3 months or longer, and over a decade of data backing it up. I've tried it myself. The research is legit. The alerts make sense. I can see exactly why each trade gets flagged, the committee connections, the legislative angles, the insider logic. It's not a black box. I've also got over 270 reviews with a 4.8 star rating. It's not theoretical. Real people are using it and it's working. So ask yourself, if a member of Congress puts $7 million into a single stock, not $100,000, not $1 million, $7 million, do you think that they're guessing, or do you think that they know something? So here's what to do. Click the link in the description, wolfofwashington.io/Mike. The discount is already applied. It's basically 2 months free, comes out to about $57 a month. You sign up, it takes 2 minutes, you get full access to the platform and all the historical data. On average, your first trade alert comes within 6 days. They send about 14 signals a month. By month 3, most members have already broken even on the subscription. After that, it's all upside. And if it's not for you, it's got a 14-day money-back guarantee. No games. wolfofwashington.io/Mike. The link is below.
Sure, you can create a narrative of behavior, but it has to be true.
I guess which of
judge
those
based
are
on
not
it.
true?
So like the CIA Mexico story is just it's completely fabricated, completely. So if you're let's look at the headline, right? The reason this was so clickbaity was because that particular news outlet, Punchbowl News, it's like this DC insider kind of outlet. They're always looking for drama inside the ranks. And so they published this headline, and it's like Crenshaw banned from travel by top Republicans after alcohol-related incident in Mexico. Man, wow. So what are you imagining when you hear that headline? You're imagining me like running around Mexico City with a sombrero and bottle of tequila, right?
Yeah, a classic Liberty incident.
Yeah, but then to click on the story to get the actual story, you've got to go through their paywall. So nobody does that. Now I posted what was behind their paywall. And now what's the alcohol-related incident? It's doing a toast with Mexican generals that was deemed that was offensive to maybe a female staffer in the room. That's that's what it says.
What was the toast?
I don't remember, but it was like team guy toasts, because that's how you do diplomacy with Mexican generals. There was another congressman in the room, a Democrat, who's like, this never, like he's just as equally. Notice they didn't want to take his comment. It's Lou Correa from California. I'm like, you don't want to take anybody's comment who was in the room who knows this is nothing even remotely close to what you would consider an alcohol-related incident. It was somebody complains that we made toasts with Mexican generals to make them laugh, and it was actually laughing at his toast, whatever it was. There was a series of probably, and so just so everyone knows, when you're doing meetings in Mexico, especially with these Army guys. They always bring out tequila at the end of the meeting. It's just it's just a thing they do. This is at like 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So it's not like there's some like night related incident. So the whole thing was just fabricated. And then they fabricate a news story, which we're going to get debunked here. There's maybe by the time this podcast drops, that story's out already. Because when that story came out, I slammed it pretty hard on social media. And I think embarrassed that particular reporter, Jake Sherman. And so he felt the need to write another story about how, well, actually, we have cables from the CIA that are complaining about this behavior. And he calls me on a Sunday asking for comments on it. And I'm like, what? And I get John Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA, on the phone. He's like, we've read through these. Like, there's one, the CIA doesn't do that. They don't write cables on congressmen's behavior. They're like, imagine if they did and then leaked it and what that would do to their reputation. They don't do that. He's like, what we do is we set up a cable, like these are the meetings, the times, this is who they met with, maybe some reflections, but we've read them. It says nothing like this. And I'm like, well, you got to debunk this story, but it was too late. The story was already like moving forward. I talked to the chief of station who was there. They're like, we never wrote this. So it's just this, I can't defend my actions because there was no actions.
So ultimately, were you banned from travel or not?
No, also no. Like, that's the other thing. It's like, and I posted this too. I'm like, if I was banned from travel, then how was I about to go to, the only reason I didn't go to Lebanon on that particular month was because the government was shut down. But no, I was under no, like, telling me the Speaker of the House told you there's no travel ban. It's just, whatever internal enemies, which I am figuring out at the moment, I think as we speak, literally created this narrative. And I think I know it's going to seem like I keep saying that because every single one of these is either created or like maybe some of it, like the hot mic moment, that happened. That's a mistake. Okay. Like, totally take credit for it. But most of these are just total fabrications. That one especially is just so ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, again, to me, it's my goal to say, hey, here's the claim. I'd love to hear your take on it, give you an opportunity to tell your side
appreciate
of it.
it. And then the second one was...
the second one's Black Lives Matter.
I don't know what that one is.
There was a Fox News article, June 9th, 2020, as well as an article on X. it said that you posted R.I.P. George Floyd and said that the anger was completely justified in relation to the riots taking place.
I would need to see proof of that. That's not something. That doesn't sound like something I would just. I mean, do you have the tweet?
I mean, I can pull it up.
I'd have to see it. There's got it. I mean, I'm sure there's more context to that. I've been pretty anti Black Lives Matter. That'd be pretty hard to stick me with that kind of accusation. I've never even heard that one before, honestly.
Okay,
that's the first I've ever heard of it.
I'll try to pull it up here when we take a break.
It's possible. I've never even heard the complaint.
Yeah. Okay. Border security. There was a bipartisan border security bill that would have allowed 5,000 illegal immigrants into the country every day. That.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember this one.
With.
So what we're talking about here is the Kristen Sinema and Senator Langford from Oklahoma got together and did this and tried to create a bipartisan immigration bill. I wouldn't call it border security / immigration policy bill. I don't know who says I supported it. I've never got the chance to support it or not support it. Because we never voted on it. It never went anywhere. I never said I supported it. What I said is, why is everyone judging this and they haven't even read it? Because within 10 seconds of it being released, there was already a movement to destroy it. So I never supported it or didn't support it. Well, I will correct people's. This was a common theme during that time, that it let in 5,000 people a day. That's just totally false. People are like, well, I read it. I'm like, well, that's great that you read it, but if you don't know immigration policy already and law, and also, you didn't really read it because you were against it, 10 seconds after the text was released. So I don't think you really read it. But that became a popular narrative, especially, amongst conservative circles. When you actually read it, it's not true. The 5,000 is referring to, it actually gave the president an additional capability that doesn't currently exist. It would have given the president, whoever the president is, the authority to completely shut down the border if the last 7 days, on average, encounters at the border, not crossings, not inside, but encounters were 5,000 a day, which is kind of like what they were at that time. It was so insane. And so current law is infinite per day and no authority to shut down the border. That's current law. This would have changed it to actually a limit and giving the president an authority to shut down, I think, asylum requests was that. So, so two things. It's like, no, I didn't get a chance to support it or not support it. First of all, because the only thing I ever said about it was just chastising people for, I think, rightfully so, for like having opinions on something you've never even read. And certainly don't understand. And a key example being that 5,000 a day, that was never in it. I'm sorry, but like that's just the truth. You have to know immigration law and like what's true, like how it already is, and then how this law affects it. And that's a constant. Like that's just one example, but I've seen this so many times when people are like, "Well, I read the legislation, I know." And I'm like, "Well, I can read French. Doesn't mean I understand what it says." And for some of these pieces of legislation are very complex, and immigration law is extremely complicated. And
why is it so complicated?
It's immigration law. I mean, you're talking about how we process asylum seekers, how we process parolees. So I've introduced immigration legislation to fix those loopholes. Right, that's how people are getting through. All laws are complicated because they're written by lawyers. Okay, so that's the fundamental answer. Look, some pieces of legislation are indeed simple and readable, but even the simple ones can be misread very easily, because just real quick, the way policy happens, the way a piece of legislation eventually gets written the way it is, we have an idea, we have a generalized idea as policymakers. We work with staff to get that idea as detailed as possible, but in the end, it always goes to legislative counsel, which is a bunch of lawyers who work in the Capitol, and they turn that policy into actual law. Now that law, when you read it, it's going to be like, well, changing the word "and" from U.S. Code 13.5 this to the word "or." I mean, and there's like lines and lines of that kind of stuff because you're shifting around U.S. Code, and so to say you read it is like that's not always meaningful, because you have to know, you really have to read like the policy summaries that are attached to it and to see what it actually does. And it's just it wasn't the time. I mean, I don't know, for whatever reason, like the politics wasn't ripe for that particular piece of legislation. And James Langford, the Republican senator who wrote it with Cinema, just got smashed for it. But to blame, like to say I support it or not support it is just inaccurate. What I don't support is having opinions on things you haven't actually read.
I mean, I can certainly understand a frustration with criticisms that are either ill-founded or misguided. To my question of why is it so complicated, I think that's one of the biggest problems is that, for the overwhelming majority of the population, to me it can come across or does seem a little dismissive to assume that people either didn't read it or they're too stupid to understand it.
Well, I'm too stupid to understand it. I mean, like, look.
To me, that's a problem, though. Like, if you're the guy,
not really, because the way. I mean, again, it's we could pull up examples. Again, some are simple, some are not. This particular bill would not be simple. It would be unreadable, And so you have to know what the policy drivers are behind it, and really understand it. There's a reason people vote representatives in the office. The idea is that you do the research and you become the expert on this, and our beliefs generally align, so I entrust you to do that. That's why we have the republic that we do of representation.
But if you're saying that you don't even understand it.
Well, I mean, if I were to read it cold, if I were to read it cold without any background, without doing the due diligence that I have the capability to do, because I have the resources to do it, because I'm the one who's in office.
Can you understand how that can come across as dismissive?
I'm not sure. I guess no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's real. I could be dishonest with you.
I mean, I would rather.
But that's how these things. That's how pieces of legislation read. They that's why there are 1,000 people that get upset because they're so long. I'm like, well, if you look at it, it's like 3-spaced, or triple-spaced. The margins are like enormous, first of all, and second of all, it's because you're changing U.S. code, and so it's lines and lines of literally shifting words around. It can be that cumbersome to actually read.
I mean, I understand that. I've read enough legal documents to know exactly what you're talking about. I guess what I don't understand is when it comes to applicable policy that is impacting everyday Americans' lives, why is it so complicated that it takes somebody, a sitting congressman with a staff of people doing mountains of research to figure out what it actually says? That to me seems wildly counterproductive.
That's just how complicated our laws are over time.
I mean, but why? Like, why are they that? Why do they need to be that complicated?
I don't know. We live in a complicated society. I mean, it's okay. I mean, so let's take like all the considerations that you would have for accepting an asylum seeker. That's not I mean, just even if we just talk through it like we're building a country from scratch, it's gonna turn into a very complicated conversation, isn't it? Okay. Well, what's the first part? Like, we'll call it a credible fear standard. Okay, how do we figure that out? What do we establish as a standard for credible fear? And that were some of the things we would want to change, for instance. Like I've put forth legislation that would change all that because I think it's too loose right now. Most Republicans would agree. There's the how we parole people. Okay, so what if somebody shows up with a kid? What if somebody shows up with a broken arm? All of these things have to be figured out under law in a lawful society. And I'm just randomly coming up with examples. And I think you and I both know that if we were to try and talk through that, we would come out with mountains of paperwork, wouldn't we? Just on those couple things because it's complicated. And that's just talking about this specific example. So, I mean, I'm not, I would love simpler rules for a complex society. Like that's a basic conservative value. But the practicality of it is, look, these laws exist long before I got there. And so, if you're going to change them, you got to change the actual laws the way they are. I could bemoan the fact that they're already complicated. Our tax system is way too complicated. I wish I could restart it and just have a basic flat tax. Consumption tax would be the most economically efficient. But I can't. So we've got to do tax law differently.
So why can you not change things like that? Or why can't they be changed?
Well, because you have to have the political support to do it. I mean, you got to have the votes. I can't do it. I'm one out of 435. So that's that question. And why doesn't the Congress do it? Well, because there has to be a massive wave of desire to get anything done at the federal level, as there should be. The founders set it up that way. Founders set it up to be very hard to pass. You can't just pass sweeping, massive change across the entire republic. It's hard. It was designed to be hard. So sometimes I think it's you always have to play the shoe on the other foot game. It's like you can be frustrated that you're not getting everything done that you want. Well, maybe also be thankful for it, because the shoe will be on the other foot. The other team will be in charge at some point, and you might be pretty glad then that these checks and balances exist, or that the difficulty of legislation does exist the way it is. So, I mean, that's, I'm not a dictator.
Is there a better way to do it than it's being done right now?
There probably is, but humanity hasn't found a better way. Yeah. The Constitution is still the most remarkable document in history. Funny thing is, we're one of the youngest countries with the oldest Constitution, so it's withstood some tests of time. There might be a better way, but we haven't found it yet.
Yeah. Insider trading, illegal donations. Again, I want to I've dove as deep as I can on the insider trading stuff. I don't see a huge monetary gain from everything that you filed, that people have found. It's certainly nothing you're going to retire off of. Or
no. I mean, what's your guess? I'm just curious, like, based on what you've seen, what's your guess on how much money I've profited over 7 years?
Tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay, well, that's pretty accurate. Yeah.
I mean,
so you actually, but that's rare that somebody would give me that answer. I think a cursory view of just the narrative is like millions.
No, I mean, that's why I looked into it.
And I had to really look into it. I had to actually pull every PDF because I was so tired of this. And I was like, I'm going to pull every single banking and 1099 tax document. I'm going to give it to accountants to figure out. And we finally got back that number. So over 7 years total, we're talking about around $46,000.
Yeah, I mean, it's consistent with what I found. And again, my goal is to not just say, hey, I heard this, tell me about it. Like there's got to be some basis to it. The caveat to that, I would say, is the percentage gains are impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's probably because I've only bought stocks maybe in two periods of time. One was after COVID hit. It's like I haven't been in the stock market for a long time, but I only bought maybe $10,000 worth of stocks, or maybe $10,000 to $20,000 worth of stocks. So the timing matters. You buy when the market crashes. I did that. I did. Like that's not inside knowledge of anything. That's just seems like a good time to buy. And then another time after in 2023, I actually haven't bought or sold anything since March 2023. And yet this is one of the most popular narratives there is. And I'm always like, guys, if I'm an inside trader, don't I have to be trading? Because clearly I'm buying and holding. I don't know where it's just just a typical mix of stocks. And if you don't want to, but that doesn't even get to the next question, of course, is, okay, well, we don't trust the institution. Fine. Like I'm on legislation to ban it. No individual stock trading. Let's ban it then. And then that might actually pass, because I think a lot of members of Congress are just sick of this narrative too. Like, people like me who aren't doing anything wrong getting accused of it. Yeah, let's just ban it. If that creates more trust, then let's do it.
No, I agree. There's 2 points I would, I guess, bring to that perspective, which is number one, I think where the overwhelming negativity of the narrative comes from is when you see people like Pelosi or Ilhan Omar, not to just pick one side, because there's plenty of Republicans too, that their net worths have skyrocketed. Granted, they've been around a lot longer than you, and maybe they were part of a system where 10, 15, 20 years ago it was way easier to do some of the things that people suspect have been done. I don't know how else you explain tens of millions of dollars of net worth I don't know either.
Pelosi's definitely an example.
The hat on the coffee table sitting right in front of me belonged to Glenn Doherty. It was a John Deere hat that I gave him. He had it when he tragically passed in Benghazi. BUBS Naturals is a tribute to Glenn. They have collagen peptides, which I put into my morning routine every single morning, as well as the functional creamer / MCT oil that goes into it as well. They have hydrate or electrolyte drink mixes, which are great for pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout to get all the added sodium, potassium, magnesium, et cetera, that's required when you deplete it. BUBS is a family company. The way that they started is, again, super close to my heart, with him being one of my closest friends for a long time. And I encourage you to go to bubs.com, and now there's a landing page specifically for Mic Drop listeners. Just enter the code Mike, M-I-K-E, all caps, and you get 20% off your first purchase at bubsnaturals.com. So that's www.bubsnaturals.com/Mike. And you can check out the Mic Drop landing page and go support an amazing cause.
I just don't know. I mean, rich people get richer. They make their money work for them. They were always pretty rich. Her husband's super wealthy. I think he's in hedge funds. Ilhan Omar. I mean, there's a lot of really sketchy behavior in all these examples. Ilhan Omar hiring her husband's company, and it's pretty obviously some things to look into.
Well, I mean, on that, I mean, there was a report about your campaign hiring your wife's company to.
Oh yeah, that was also another false
never
one.
happened.
No, and my wife. Okay, I'll explain that one too. So this was. How did this attack start? So this company, it was a local small business that does websites and all of our like campaign mail, like merchandise stuff, because they have a warehouse. And so we worked with them for years. And then my book came out, 2020. And, my wife's business for that was simply selling my book with signed copies. And so she had a separate contract with it, because they were like, hey, wait, they had a separate like profit sharing contract with the same company for book money. That was totally private. It had nothing to do with my campaign. There was no money going to her from my campaign at all. She just contracted with the same people because we needed a website and needed a distribution warehouse. So it made sense to partner with them. But people see the name of the company, and they extrapolate from that.
I mean, I understand that. Is there any part of you that, in hindsight, thinks maybe we should have just kept the conflict of interest completely black and white and had somebody else do it that isn't my wife?
No.
You do?
We didn't do it. I mean, we didn't. Again, like, we're operating within the rules and the law. Like, there's nothing sketchy at all about what we were doing.
I guess to compare that with Ilhan Omar's example, you would make a huge distinction.
Well, Ilhan Omar was hiring an actual campaign. I don't exactly know the details. I mean, she would, if she'd been caught by now, like, especially under this administration, somehow she was operating within the law too, I think, because we would have found out by now. I don't know. This is an old accusation. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was something around like, her husband has a consulting firm, if I'm not mistaken, and she hired that. Does that sound familiar? I don't even remember.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's illegal. Like, I think you can't. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I guess
if it's not illegal, probably should make it illegal.
Well, I think that's maybe the point, is that I think to your question of, where do these things get started? Why is there this kind of national pounding of the pulpit style heartburn with the way that our representatives conduct themselves financially, business ethics, et cetera, is that when they see anybody in Congress, and then you see multiple people in Congress or in the Senate, I mean, whatever, that, their net worth is X and it's very low, and 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, 20 years later, they're worth tens of millions of dollars on a $174,000 salary.
I can't answer for any of them. I can only answer for me. That's the reality. And
no, but I'm just saying, like, if you're asking where that comes from, 435 people out of 340 million is a pretty small fucking number, and so the assumption is that you guys are all in the same club. And that, like, if one person's doing it, then there's some, backdoor meeting where it's like, hey, if you want to get rich, this is how you do it. Like, like I've never been there. Yeah. Like, I don't know, but perception is reality. I mean, that is the reality.
We learned that in BUDS.
What's that? Yeah. So, if we as the American people see multiple representatives on both sides conducting
that gets to my point about, like, why am I co-sponsoring these pieces of legislation that ban individual stock trading?
Do you think
because perception is reality? You're right. Like, why not just create more trust? And A lot of these ethics rules have come into play in the last like couple decades. So yes, there was a time longer ago for sure when like a lot more sketchy stuff was happening. You know, you could take gifts, you could take rides, you can't do any of that now. Does weird stuff still happen? I mean, yeah, look at Senator Menendez getting gold bars from the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Remember how they caught him? He's Googling, how do you sell gold bars? I mean, obviously there's still crazy stuff that happens, but you get caught. I mean,
Right.
it would be very stupid to try. It would be very stupid to try and I'll give you an example why, because you brought up the illegal donations. This is why it's so stupid to even try. So these illegal donations that we're talking about, it's an accounting error. So like when we first get into office, we're getting so many small dollar donations that the people we have to hire, everybody does. We hire like a kind of a financial firm that goes through and like puts it in the proper FEC reports. When people over donate, okay, so like if you gave me $4,000 right now, like and you just put it in on the internet, I can't stop you from doing that. My people have to go through the finances and send you a check for $500 because you just over donated by $500. So that's the illegal donation. And even if it's $12 or $10, we have to send checks. It takes a lot of manpower to send those checks when there's thousands of them. And if you're late, you get fined.
And so that's
what it is. Yeah. And now, was I really pissed about it? Yes. Because I was like, I wanted to fire the people we'd hired for it, but you know, there's nobody else to hire. It's frustrating as hell because it creates a narrative. It's not something I did. It's not like I was seeking out illegal donations. It was these refunds that we could not get back in time.
Yeah.
And you know, if I'd been, you know, it just sucks, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, again, like I think the biggest thing from our perspective, if you want to lump me into the non-government official American, is the optics of seeing these things happen, whether it's, you know, the FDR, you know, the disclosures, you know, that are being done and a lot of that information not making sense, or seeing net worth of people skyrocketing and asking like, this person's job is to work for us, and they go to Washington and 20 years later they're worth tens of millions of dollars.
Again, I can only speak to myself. Like, I just don't know. I don't know each member. I don't know. I can only speak to my own experience and
I would say
my net worth.
It's probably akin to, you know, the SEAL team's reputation. Granted, there are quite a bit more SEALs than there are House of Representatives, but how many SEALs need to, you know, commit a war crime before the public thinks SEALs are war criminals? You know, so I'm not naive to the fact that I'm sure that there's some of that. But again, you know, the element of not knowing, of looking at it almost like you guys are the wizards behind the curtain, and there's so many things that, like, we just aren't privy to what it's like.
Yeah.
You know, what is...
and all I can do is try and give you the best image, like the best picture there is. You can believe me or not believe me. And, you know, from my own experience, it's like, okay, so people think like it just bribes are coming at you all the time. Lobbyists are trying to, you know, move you in a certain direction. And it's just, I do think that was maybe an older way of looking, like maybe back in the past that like, for instance, the lobbying groups had more influence, but then campaign finance restrictions were put on them and all these other rules were put on them. So their influence dwindled a lot. You know, you take your typical, you're represented by some kind of lobbyist, right? In the broadcasting industry, or somebody's representing you, whether you know it or not. I don't care what you do for a living. And so do they have a lot of power over our opinions? Not really. Only to the extent that, like, when they have power, it's because, like, hey, we represent 10,000 people in your district, and if you do this kind of legislation, it affects them this way. That's really good to know, actually.
And how much does a campaign cost, if you don't mind me asking?
It can vary from nothing to million, like just tens of millions.
All right, so can I ask how much your campaign cost?
Right now, I mean,
I guess the last one, since you have a full number on
nothing. We didn't spend anything on the last one, so because we didn't have much money. I mean, also my campaign. And you can look this up and see what our cash on hand is. It's under $1 million right now. So even though we're in a actual primary right now, which is super annoying, is because this is the most work and best work we've ever had to do in a year because we've won the trifecta. Republicans have the Senate, House, and presidency. We're finally doing a lot of good work, and it's having a primary guys just trying to mess all that up is frustrating to say the least. But even this isn't close to the most expensive campaign. I mean, I heard numbers. This campaign cost $17 million, because I was in a purple district battling Democrats. That was the general campaign against Democrat challenger. So again, it varies extremely widely from like how much a campaign costs.
Well, so if PACs and individuals are only allowed 5,000 max, how would somebody be able to raise $17 million?
Because of our low dollar donations, and we had a lot of them back then because I was pretty well known at that time. So a lot of factors. Because low dollar donations is really the only way. That's how you end up with a lot of money, or you're making phone calls for 6 hours a day. There's no other way.
I mean, so any reports you hear about, and I'm not even speaking just to you, but any politician receiving millions of dollars from a private donor that works in, say, the commercial construction industry.
I got it. So like you'll hear something like, well, Trump got $1 million from this donor, $100 million.
Right.
It's not accurate to say technically that Trump's campaign got it. It's accurate to say that his super PAC got it. So there is a super PAC that is always an entity that everybody creates. No presidential campaign could get to where it is without having a super PAC. That's where that money's going. Technically speaking, the candidate has no relation. Like they can't say what the super PAC should do. They can't say what the message should be. They can't have anything to do with it. Except now they can fundraise for it. They can say, we would like you to give this money to them, and then they leave it at that. That's technically what the rules are. So two very different things. Like there's money I can control within my campaign, and that is very strictly prohibited. 5,000, 3,500 from an individual, 5,000 from a PAC. But those limitations are very real. That's why we have not enough money right now. We never really have enough. But a super PAC in theory could be funded by one individual.
So, from, again, just hearing that, my first kind of inclination is it sounds like a loophole or a way around a politician being able to raise tens or hundreds of millions of dollars for a re-election.
Yeah, I mean, it is a loophole. It's how I'm getting attacked so much right now. I'm seeing mail every single day about, that's pretty wild actually. Because some rich guy or a couple of rich guys got together and funded my opponent's super PAC. So, yeah, it is now. It's only a loophole though if everybody playing by the same rules. It would be concerning if not everyone could play by the same rules, but everyone does. So we live in Texas. There's no campaign finance limitations in Texas.
So, I mean, do you have a super PAC that supports you?
There's a super PAC, yeah, just like my opponent does, and apparently his is better funded because I'm seeing all this stuff come every day. But
so I guess
it's not abnormal, no.
I mean, I understand it's normal. It seems like everybody does it. I think that's where a lot of heartburn comes from.
But it's also disclosed. Just like you can know every donor that's ever donated to me. You can look. There's ways to look it up online. Every super PAC has to disclose its donors also, and then you also see what they do. So it's not murky at all. It all has to be disclosed publicly.
I mean, that's not stopping any of them from raising hundreds of millions of dollars and employing it or deploying it however they want. And
that's exactly right, because it's a First Amendment thing. This came to a head in the Citizens United, right? That's the Supreme Court ruling that effectively decided that, okay, is the super PAC legal or not? Because it's, for the reasons you're stating, it doesn't feel right. But is it legal? And the answer is yeah, unless you change the First Amendment, it's absolutely legal. People have the right to band together, spend money, and use their freedom of speech to spend that money the way they want. That's why all of these things are legal. So you'd have to change the First Amendment. And that was, so we couldn't even pass a law to make it illegal because that law would be unconstitutional.
I understand that. I guess, again, it's seeing that, and I think for most people, it muddies the water or makes it feel nefarious, disingenuous.
Well, that's why we're here to talk about it and help people understand what they are. You know, I mean, that's the benefit of doing this kind of conversation, honestly.
Outside of that, I mean, again, I look at, if I put myself in your shoes, right, and there's a super PAC, XYZ super PAC is supporting me for my congressional run, I would want to know who the big donors are. I would want to know what their reputations are. I would want to know what they want. You know, to me, like,
yeah, well, okay, that's a good point. Okay, what they want. That's a common belief, right? You're going around, you're raising money, and it's always for something. It's always an exchange. You know what I notice is the donors who are new donors, especially the big, like the first time they've ever even gotten involved in politics, even they think there's like some exchange. And you're like, no, there isn't. I mean, you know, maybe they have better access, right? Because they can call you or something. But most donors, and definitely the super PACs that are supporting you, no, there's no ask. I've never gotten an ask. They're supporting you because you're already what they want. And that's what you notice in lobbying. You notice in all of these groups. It's way too expensive to try and get any member of Congress to change their minds on something. They're just like flip flop. I mean, because if that were possible, we would be trying to like get Democrats to flip flop on all sorts of stuff. We'd be spending all sorts of money to try and just get them to do that. But
yeah, I don't think
it's not even worth it, because the Democrat knows that if they flip flop on this, they lose their election, and that's more, you know, that's what they actually care about.
Yeah,
Everyone thinks they care about the money, but what they actually care about is the votes.
I don't think most people
district.
are of the impression that people are flip flopping. I think it's more of a seeing dots connected, where, you know, an example is, you know, a congressman's district, a big construction company donates a ton of money to the super PAC that supports that guy, and then coincidentally that same company gets this $47 million road construction contract.
Yeah, that would be messed up.
But those things happen.
Maybe I haven't, certainly not to me.
I mean, I guess that's where I would say most people, their lack of confidence is when they see things like that.
I would need an example. I honestly don't even. Do you have an example of something like that?
I mean, there's a bunch I can show you.
It's
again,
possible. Like, it's like Pelosi kind of got a grant for a big park. You know, I mean, because she was speaker and she had that kind of influence, and you know, she's got a big thing. I remember for Presidio Park in San Francisco. So, yeah, I mean, I could see that, but I can only answer for what I've done.
So, just I guess to be clear, all of the big donors for any of the super PAC support you've received, they've never asked you for anything?
No, I mean, they're truly not. Like, this is not, you have to say, like, the people who play in this game, they're looking at who's worth supporting and who's not, based on your actions. You're a pretty known quantity, especially somebody like me after 7 years. It's pretty obvious what I stand for and what I don't stand for. You're not going to get something different. So there's no point in asking, you know?
And you would prefer to not mention who the big donor?
I really don't. Well, for specific ones I know, yeah, like, no, it's you can look them up if you want to know. But and they wouldn't mean, those names wouldn't mean anything to you. Just be honest. And it's not APAC. I know that. So it just, again, I don't know where these numbers came from, or like, people just post crap on social media, and it's just like it becomes truth all of a sudden. And there's just, especially about me, because I'm clickbait. I need to get a tattoo that says clickbait. And I mean, I joke about that, but it's like, it's just true. And it's been true ever since I was on Saturday Night Live, and there's, you know, it's a double-edged sword.
So in terms of the lobbying stuff, from a big corporation lobbying in D.C. where there's enormous amounts of money going back and forth that you at least hear about,
yeah,
is there anything you can clear up with that?
Well, so corporate law, so big corporations all have a PAC. And so and a PAC is a political action committee, which is just a bunch of people who put their money together and express their desires, and they'll hire a lobbyist, they'll hire a government affairs person who you know, works in DC. Again, like, no matter what you do for a living, you're probably represented by somebody. Even if you do individual contracting, because there's lobbyists who represent, like, these associations that represent, you know, what people who do, like, even if you're individually employed, you know, you'd be represented somehow. So, and an Exxon or a Chevron or whatever, like, they'll have their own PAC, and what they're doing is they're telling all of their not all of their employees, but they can do it however they want. They ask their employees, especially at an executive level, to donate to the PAC, so that that PAC can go actually be funded to lobby on their behalf. Now, do they try to switch people's minds? I mean, Exxon isn't going to switch anybody's mind on the Democrat side, that's for sure. You know, Democrats are beholden to a green energy kind of thing. Just like the solar companies aren't going to switch my mind. They could give me all the money in the world. I'd be like, no, it doesn't matter because because that would be a killer for me. That's not what I represent. I'm not going to do it. So the money just matters so little. I don't know if that I don't know if that was your question, because again, the money is only $5,000, first of all. So there's no one company that can ever switch anybody's mind. Now, in theory, a big giant corporation could start its own super PAC and do what it does. I don't know. I'm not sure what examples I'd even see of that. There might be some, but they certainly haven't helped me if that's the case.
Okay. From the FDR kind of disclosures, there's a couple of instances of, at least early on, where it looks like you got in trouble for not disclosing things fast enough or properly, et cetera. Is that the case?
What, FDR?
The federal disclosure.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think that was the only time we ever got in trouble. Not disclosing something fast enough. Like I said, and those are refunds. These are literal checks that have to be mailed in snail mail. It's just, the firm we hired just couldn't do it fast enough because we were actually fundraising so well, and there's so many small dollar donations, and that turn into, if somebody donates 1,000, they donate 1,000, then they donate another 1,000. Well, shit, you just went over the mark. You don't even know it. We are supposed to be tracking all of it, issuing you a refund. When there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them, that's how that happens.
Are you familiar with the $220,000 illegal donations accepting from a contribution made from a donor with a foreign address? There's an article in the Washington Times.
To me?
Yeah.
No. Again, nobody can donate $220,000.
It says failing to return $220,000 in illegal donations and accepting a contribution made from a donor with a foreign address.
Well, again, okay, so it's the same story.
Well, sort of.
I think it's the same story.
Yeah, I mean, the $220,000, I think you've cleared up.
Yeah.
If it's excess checks.
So again, like I can't. Yeah, somebody puts a foreign address in there. You're supposed to be an American citizen. First of all, that's the law. You have to be an American citizen to donate. But if a foreigner does donate and they put in a foreign address, yeah, we have to eventually return that. But this is all in the same time frame, I think, where we didn't get the returns fast enough. It's not like we took it. It's not like we're trying to get some illegal money here. Nobody's asking for that. But the way the system works, and the way I've explained it, I think that's where it comes from.
And so somebody with a foreign address can donate?
Yeah, you can go on the website, and it's up to us to be like, oh, crap, like we have to catch it. We have to catch it. And it's easier to catch now because we don't have thousands and thousands of donations coming in. So that's why this was only a problem once. But yeah, we would catch it now, but I think back then it was just there was too many coming in.
Yeah. So
it was a good problem to have, but the paperwork couldn't keep up with it.
Yeah. With the financial disclosure reports, the recurring theme and thing that I've seen pop up as it relates to you more than once is the gist of not having checking and savings accounts posted as having them on it. Is that on an FDR, a checking and savings is still considered an asset, and you have no listed checking or savings accounts on any of your FDRs?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Is that to say that you don't have a checking or savings?
Of course, I have a checking account, but it's not even a box you check. It's not even part of our disclosures.
But it's supposed to be listed under assets, from the way I understand it, and it's not listed.
I would have been in trouble by now with the actual actual institution if I was supposed to list that and didn't. It's just I don't even think it's not a thing.
Well, I mean,
you're supposed to list like your. I don't know. I have to go through the website, but I mean we do it once a year.
Well, I mean, Nancy Pelosi lists a checking and savings account on hers.
Maybe you can. I mean, you can put extra comments if you want. Maybe that's what you're seeing, but you don't. I do everything I'm supposed to do.
Like you haven't been dinged for that?
No.
So
it's not. I've never. Yeah, I would know if I'd violated something because they'll tell you pretty quickly.
So you do have a checking or savings account?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of another thing, again, just people looking through those and saying, what's the deal with this?
Yeah.
Owning 3 properties, which I know a lot of people own multiple properties. That's not a crime or anything. But we've seen it with a lot of people of being questioned whether or not they spend most of their time in the district that they represent. And if not, is there, do they have tenants at their other places? Are they, accepting rent, et cetera? Do you care to explain anything on that?
Sure. I mean, okay. Yeah, let's just get right to the bones of what's my net worth, right? I don't freaking know. It's about, I just ask Grok or Chat GPT. It usually comes up with a pretty,
it's like high ones, low twos.
Exactly. Seems about right. About what you would expect, in my opinion, from a 41-year-old who's always had a job and bought property early after his first deployment and wrote a best-selling book. That's where it comes from, and it's pretty consistent with that narrative. So when did I buy my first property? I think it was 2008. It's after my first deployment because I saved my money. It's not like I don't have any family money, by the way. I saved my money and I put it down on a condo in San Diego. In East Village. Sold that a few years ago. In 2015, again, just from my savings in the military and also from getting blown up. I mean, as you know, we have an insurance. We're insured, right? This is what a lot of people don't know. As an active duty member, you have an insurance policy. So if you die, your family gets $400,000. But also, if you're seriously injured, you get up to $100,000. I was pretty seriously injured, so I met all the criteria for getting $100,000. I used that money, put it into a investment property in Imperial Beach, just south of Imperial Beach. Been there lots of times, and that was back in 2015. So it's an investment property. So it's always been rented out. It's a duplex. That's the third property to be talking about. The other 2 are my home in Texas, where I live in the district, and then are my 485 square foot little home, literally 485 square feet in DC on Capitol Hill. So I have a place to stay when I'm there. So I mean, every member does it differently. Some buy a place, some rent, it's horrible there. So I save money by paying a mortgage and not renting. But yeah, that's.
Do you have a place in Virginia Beach or no?
The what?
Do you not have a place in Virginia Beach?
No.
No.
I would remember that too. There's a DST. You know what a DST is?
I don't.
Delaware Savings Trust. So when I sold my condo, I just put that into you do a 1031 exchange, and I put that into a DST. So I put that money into basically a part ownership of a apartment building. That I think is outside of Richmond, Virginia. So I mean, I wouldn't call that owning property. It's kind of like you're just investing in property. But that was just that's taking the sales from my condo that I bought after my first deployment and just putting it there. So it's one of those more a longer term kind of investment.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's people are like, oh, your stocks. It's that's not where I invest ever. It's investments like that.
Yeah. Okay, this actually ties back to what I mentioned earlier about Wolf of Washington. What we're really talking about here is context, knowing what's coming legislatively, understanding how the policy moves markets, having access to information that normal investors just do not have. That's the edge people are trying to tap into when they track congressional trades. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think the edge is just seeing the trade. Pelosi bought Google, I should buy Google. That's not exactly it. The real edge is understanding why someone with committee access, briefings, and legislative knowledge would make that trade at that exact moment. That is exactly what Wolf of Washington focuses on. They map the connections, the committee assignments, the voting records, executive meetings, lobbying money, all to identify which trades actually have insider logic behind them versus which ones are just noise. The examples I mentioned earlier, Google up 112%, Opendoor up 233%, those were called in real time. Members got the alerts when the trades happened. I've gone through the research myself,
and it checks out. You can see the reasoning behind every single alert. I'm sharing this with you guys because the founder put everything on the line, exposing political corruption. Lost millions because investors couldn't handle the pressure, kept going anyway. That's a mission I can absolutely respect. If you're interested, the link is wolfofwashington.io/Mike. The discount is already applied. It's basically 2 months free, and there's a 14-day money-back guarantee if it's not your thing. If you've been curious about congressional trading but haven't found a clean, usable way to actually act on the information, this is for sure worth a look. Link is in the description.
I guess moving down the list of things that I've seen that people are. Well, I guess before we get into that, just going back the last question on the living situation, could you put a percentage on how much time you spend in Texas? Like, do you go to your place in California at all? Like, or is it rented out?
No, that's not. Yeah, it's not. It's an investment property.
Okay. Do you spend most of the time in Texas?
No, we spend most of the time in D.C.
Yeah, I mean, percentage-wise?
It's hard to say. I mean, let me show you my calendar. Like, it's here. See this? This is the yellow is when we're supposed to be in D.C. Like that's our schedule.
I gotcha.
Okay, so I mean, I don't know if people are like, you're never in the district. Well, you did hire me to actually work for you in D.C. We're in the district as much as we can be, and not as much as we'd like, I would say, because that's home. I mean, my home that I like living in is my home in Houston. Like that's what I prefer to be. Because of that schedule I just showed you, that's not my job. My job in D.C.
Yeah.
It's not fun, and that's why, let's talk about fellow SEAL like Morgan Luttrell. Right? He's doing 2 terms and he's out. Why is he out? Because he has 3 school-age kids. He never gets to see them. That's, I could have seen that happening, right? It's my daughter's just turned 2, so we don't have that problem yet. Travel with her back and forth, and she's been on 150 flights maybe by now. It's like it's hell, but like it's just what you do.
Yeah. Continuing to go down the list, support for red flag laws. This was something that came.
Oh yeah,
came
this
up
was an old
years
one.
ago, but
I think we debunked that one pretty hard over the years. But I mean that came from a single tweet after the El Paso shooting. And it was my first year in Congress, and President Trump got on and was like, we need to have red flag laws. Everyone kind of freaked everybody out. The tweet was intended to kind of just sort of push back without pushing back too hard on like the federal idea. So that's my job, is the federal idea. So I wish I hadn't done it. I would totally not do this after seeing all the fallout from it, because it's like I didn't even really support it. I was just like, maybe you think about it at the state level, and all of a sudden I was just, again, because I'm well known, it was like I'm the red flag law guy, and I was like, shit, like that's not what I intended at all. And I was like, and I've been trying to make up for it ever since. And I've introduced legislation every session, an anti-red flag law, or preventing the unjust red flag law act every session, which would withhold federal money to any state that's for implementing red flag laws. So definitely not for them. Made the mistake of like trying to thread a needle with like what the president was saying. It's like, and somehow I became the red flag law guy, even though I was defending Trump in a way, and I was trying to change the conversation away from the federal level, and it was stupid. It was just stupid. Like I regret ever jumping into that mess at all.
Well, I mean, so the tweet says the solutions aren't obvious, even if we pretend they are, but we must try. Let's start with the TAPS Act.
Yeah,
maybe also implement state red flag laws or gun violence restraining orders. Stop them before they can hurt someone.
Yeah.
As you sit here today, are you saying that was a mistake and you don't?
Yeah, because again, I'm trying to break the TAPS Act is something totally different than innocuous. But I mean, I was clearly trying to. I was like, maybe at the state, because Trump had just said we need red flag laws at the federal level, and everyone's like, no. So yeah, I regret saying that. Like, why even jump into it? And I've learned these lessons over time.
Yeah.
Because I'm jumping into something that I'm not even supportive of. It's just stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, I think that's, one of the things that I don't see a lot of representatives doing, of saying, yeah, I fucked that up. I shouldn't have said that. I don't agree with that. I made a mistake. Like, instead of tap dancing and getting defensive and saying, well, no, it's not really what I meant, or like I think that's one of the biggest things that at least from the conversations I have with a lot of people all over the country is feeling like our representatives, like they feel like their shit doesn't stink, that we work for them and that they can do no wrong. And no matter what gets thrown at them, it's either that wasn't true, that's not what I said, prove it, no, that's not what I meant. Like there's, it's like they're coated in Pam and nothing will stick to them.
Depends on what it is, because a lot of you're going down this list and I'm like, that's not true, or this is why. In this case, I just made a mistake.
Well, and I can appreciate that. I mean,
it's
it's
a different answer for every single thing because every single thing's unique.
Yeah. Biden lifting the trans military ban, quoted as saying they should serve openly on Fox News. Do you have an opinion on that?
I've always been very openly against funding trans anything in the military. That's a there's so much evidence out there that shows my opinions on this one over time. I'm not even sure where this one's coming from.
I mean, again, it was an article on Fox News. You were quoted as saying they should serve openly.
Again, I don't know the context of what we're talking about. I know I've always been against you shouldn't have any funding for it, any of the transitions. This is why I'm not even sure. I don't think the news article is even trying to say that I support it. I'm pretty sure I know which one you're talking about, but people might take it that way. I don't know. Again, you got to take everything I've ever said. I've done nothing but make the case that I don't like transgender. I don't want any transgender operations in the military, medical procedures, let's say. I think what I was saying was I basically agree with the Trump administration's position, the previous, the first Trump administration's position, which was, look, you can say you're a girl, but you definitely can't take hormones and do medical procedures that make you undeployable, because that affects military readiness. That was effectively the ban back then. That's effectively now. Biden had changed it so that, and there wasn't many cases, but I remember hearing at least 11 where we'd actually pay taxpayer money to transition someone who's active duty. Never been I've fought hard against that. So it's just not what I'm for.
Are you okay with transgender being an openly serving entity in the United States? Let's say a commander of the SEAL teams comes out as being a transgender.
I don't like it. Can we make it illegal? Yeah. I mean, what I'm definitely against,
I think we should.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I don't think anyone's fought harder on this issue than me, especially in the kid. What I care about is what the kids. That's my focus. We actually just passed my legislation out just in December. Finally, this has been in the passed the stuff out of committee a long time ago, and just could not get the leadership to get it out on the House floor. Finally did. But it bans all federal funding to any hospital that does any transgender surgeries on minors. Yeah. That's what we have to protect from. I mean, that's the real danger here. And again, it's I don't like it in the military. That's a culture issue. I'm going to let them deal with that for the most part. What we cannot let happen is actual surgeries and therapies that absolutely make you undeployable. And we have to protect our kids. So that's, I'm proud of that legislation. We've been fighting this for years.
Yeah.
So it's a really weird to try and attack me on this issue of all issues. That's a weird one, because I've been out front on this one real hard when it was unpopular to be out front on it.
Well, I mean, I can only assume that to hear, if you want to call it waffling or maybe unsuredness of saying, should we make it illegal in the military? I'm not so sure. I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not. Show me where this. Look, if a bunch of SEALs are coming out, and SEAL commanders are coming out as and putting on a dress tomorrow, we can have the conversation about whether it's a problem or not. But I don't know, man. I'm dealing with serious stuff, and since that's not happening, I don't know. Because you're talking about cross-dressing more than transgender. It's already should be illegal, as we've made pretty clear, that you shouldn't be doing anything that would make you unready. And then you should be in the regulations. I guess that would be the law. You must be within the regulations of your biological gender. That would be the right way to write that. And I think that would make sense. Like, go fly your freak flag outside of work hours, but not here. Yeah, that's perfectly sensible. Now, you don't need a law to do that, okay? That's going to be dependent on the administration in charge, not my branch of government. So, it's not something, and we haven't had to put much thought into this in a long time, to be honest. So it's kind of why you're catching me off guard. It's like I'm trying to deal with an actual problem, which is how kids are getting like fed misinformation online, how their parents are lied to, how states like California are talking about pushing out rules that would allow transgender surgeries on 12-year-olds without parent consent. That's a real problem. So that's what I'm focused on. And that's what we have tried to get out of the House. I don't know why the Senate wouldn't take it up. I do think, because we had a few Democrats vote for that. Because Democrats are realizing, because you got to win these culture wars. The transgender issue is a culture war, especially with kids. And I don't even have countless videos of me debating this in public. So that's why it's a strange issue to when I've been leading on this issue for a long time. It's strange to I've never even heard the criticism, honestly. So some of these I've never even heard. Yeah. And there's a good reason for it, because again, this is one of my main accomplishments, is getting that legislation out of the House. And I've been battling it when it wasn't that popular to battle it. And and because we battled it, we've made it more popular to battle it. It's more mainstream now to say, no, you can't have a double mastectomy on a 12-year-old girl. You can't. And I posted videos recently on this. It's I on the House floor, where I'm debating on this piece of legislation that we passed in December. And I point out, I'm like, my daughter grows up with a dad who has one eye. What if she identifies as monocular, as a one-eyed person? Do I take her to the surgeon and say remove her other eye? She identifies that way. It's like, no, that would be insane. Everyone thinks that would be insane. And yet losing an eye is actually there's far less physiological damage than changing your gender. So, I've said that so many times, I don't even know, because it's a good analogy. And it's a good argument, and Democrats can't do anything with it when I say it. And I'll go through the studies, man. It's like, I don't think anybody's just read those studies more than I have. So yeah,
No, I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly.
I know you do, but but you're saying it's like a kind of from the right flank trying to attack me on that. It's like, I don't know how you can get to my right on this issue. Yeah. I really don't.
Yeah. Going back to temperament, I'd love to dive into the issues you had with Shawn Ryan, Eddie Gallagher, Tucker Carlson. We can kind of go through them, since while they are three separate kind of occurrences.
There's one common theme.
From my perspective, there's a common theme of, I think, the optics of, what I think most people would consider is, beneath the office of even getting into that type of engagement with any of them.
Right. That's the common theme. And if you look at every single one, if you look at the actual facts, not the narrative of this back and forth, but the actual facts, every single one is manufactured by that person. Tucker Carlson's been since 2022, on a month, when he first came after me, on a monthly basis would bring up me on his show. I didn't do anything about it. This is a big Fox News prime time. Like, what could I do about it? I only started responding to him even, after he got fired from Fox. And then I would call the hot mic moment just a stupid fuck up on my part. That's what I would call that. You just shouldn't talk like that. That's fair. Now, I thought I was talking in private. Don't get me wrong. People are like, you shouldn't talk like that. I'm like, I agree with you. I shouldn't. I never would in public. It's a stupid thing. I thought I was saying in private. Like, somebody cuts you off, you say dumb things like that. I don't really mean it. And Tucker Carlson never even took it that way. Because it wasn't. Even he knew.
Yeah. Well,
now, just real quick though. Common theme: who manufactured this conflict? It's like Tucker did over many years. Who's manufactured a conflict with Eddie Gallagher? Have I ever done a video on Eddie? Have I done anything on it? Can't find anything. I've answered questions on one podcast about it. He just makes videos about me, not helping him. Now, I've got pages and pages of communication with his family from, that was my first year in office, it was 2019, which demonstrates pretty well that I helped him as much as I possibly could. Probably the only member of Congress that even bothered to try and do the research and get into the real legal details on like how to help him. Let's get into that in a second. And then the Shawn Ryan thing, it's like, is there a back and forth? No. He just mentions me out of the blue like a year and a half ago or whatever, and like he's talking about this congressman getting rich. He doesn't say my name, but again, it's like some of my buddies from Six, of course, that's part of the story, like sent it to me, sent me this clip, and they're like, oh, he's talking about you because, you know, remember we went to the Steve Aoki performance. Now, Shawn Ryan says I paid for it, and I'm so rich that I paid for Steve Aoki to DJ. It's like, okay, no, I didn't. You know, and so I text him that, or DM him that on Instagram, because that's the only way I know to get a hold of him. And I'm like, hey, like, you know, what did I say? I don't know, we have the exact text somewhere, but I'm like, and I texted him privately. That's important, you know, because he didn't say my name publicly, but I knew he was talking about me. And so I'm like, okay, you clearly have this idea. And so, okay, I texted him this. I was like, you know, you can just reach out to your fellow team guy if you have questions about how I'm quote unquote getting rich. That was the first sentence. So I'm saying, reach out to me if you have questions about it. Like, you know, we're talking privately here. My boys at Six told me you took this indirect swipe at me. Now he later claims that's a threat, which is the most insane argument I've ever heard. And the third sentence I think in that text was, it sounds like you're going off of trendy narratives instead of facts. Okay, so that's it. Like, and then he goes on a year later. He's got Matt Bissonnette, you know, well, I don't know if you know him, but you know of him obviously, and you know, and they're talking about something that has to do with his book, I guess. And for some reason he brings my name into it, which doesn't make any sense, but he does. And then Shawn Ryan just goes off again. I have never said anything publicly about Shawn Ryan. He's just going off about me now twice to 5 million people who follow him or whatever his audience is. Okay, so who's made you feel like, who did this? Is it me? And he says that text was a threat to him to beat him up. It's like, what? And so I private message him again, a private message. I'm like, Shawn, like, what are you doing? Like, you know, these texts can just be, you know, we can still see them, right? Like, it's not like you're referencing a conversation. You're referencing very specific words. And I didn't say that at all. Like, what I sent you was a very normal, like, reaction to that. Like, hey, this isn't right. You should call me. Like, my friends told me you said this. Like, it's like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I don't think it's unbecoming of a congressman even a little bit. So now I've reached out to him twice privately, and still no response. And he's not taking this down. So he's going to continue to say these things. One, that I'm insider trading, and he's implying this stuff, right? He's not. You know, he's not amenable to a conversation. That's clear.
Well, what happened with that?
With what? Well, hold on. I'm going to tell you. The third time I reach out to him privately is a lawyer letter. Because you're accusing me of criminal activity. And that's the threshold. Like, you can, all these lies, like we going over, I can't just go suing everybody for them. But if you're stating a fact that I'm a criminal, and it is a crime to be conspiring to get a group of elite special operators to come commit assault on you, like, that would be a crime. And it would be a real threat is a crime. So I've got to defend myself somehow. So how do you do it? And so I've got two options, right? When somebody says something like that, there's really a decision tree. The first option is do nothing. 99% of the time, that's exactly what I do, is absolutely nothing. The second option is, you've said that to too many people, you know, who follow you. I have to do something. Are you amenable to private conversation? You are, Mike. So, like, I reached out to you and Andy when you guys had that conversation about me and Shawn, and you got a lot of things wrong. And I reached out to Andy because Andy knows, I know Andy really well, but he kind of didn't make it seem that way on the podcast. But I immediately reached out to him, like, what is going on here, man? And so we have a normal, you know, as real men, we get together and we clear things up. So you're somebody who I could reach out to personally, right? So that's the first option. Shawn has already made that not an option, right?
What did we get wrong?
Because you guys kept talking about this, like, back and forth, and that's what I'm kind of explaining to you is there is no back and forth because he manufactured this entire thing. So he's lied about this, like, having a bunch of money, or at least he's getting it wrong. I don't know if he's lying, but you're saying that I hired all these people. That's not true, right? You're saying I have a bunch of money. It's not really true. Then a year later, you're saying I threatened you. It's not true. So far in this entire thing, I've literally done nothing. I've done absolutely nothing. And this narrative is getting created that I'm rich, insider trading, and also threatening Shawn Ryan. Meanwhile, I have literally done nothing. So that's a pretty important point to make here. The only thing I did was send him a letter eventually that's like, dude, you can't commit me, you can't accuse me of criminal activity. That is slander. We can sue you for it. We're not going to sue you. We would like you to just take it down, or just, that's the request. It's a demand letter. And, and what does he do with the demand letter? He makes it public. So I've done 3 private communications with him trying to obviously it escalates. I'm like, you're not going to have a conversation with me. You're not going to, obviously you want this conflict, I think. So it is what it is. So eventually, of course, we thought he might do that because it's good clickbait.
All right, guys, winter's here, and I've been spending a lot more time indoors, which means more hours on my Helix mattress, which has really changed the way I sleep. Helix sent me my mattress for free, in my honest opinion, and I didn't realize how bad my old mattress was until I switched. I used to wake up stiff, tossing and turning and sweating through the night. Since I moved to Helix, I sleep deeper, I don't wake up with a sore back, and I stay comfortable all night. If you've never bought a mattress online, Helix makes it easy. You take their sleep quiz and it matches you with the right mattress based on how you sleep. Firm, soft, side sleeper, stomach sleeper, whatever. Ships right to your door, free, and you get 120 nights to try it out, plus a lifetime warranty. Helix is also the most awarded mattress brand, tested and reviewed by outlets like Forbes and Wired. And they ran a study showing 82% of people saw an increase in deep sleep on a Helix. I'm in that group, and I feel it every morning. So here's the deal. Go to helixsleep.com/micdrop for 27% off site-wide. That's helixsleep.com/micdrop for 27% off site-wide. Make sure that you enter the show name after checkout so they know that I sent you.
Because look, if your entire job is to sell ads and get engagement, like there's some incentives there, and they're perverse incentives. And the incentives are definitely centered around more attention. And nothing gets more attention like a conflict with a fellow Navy SEAL and Congressman Dan Crenshaw. What good attention that is. See, there's this the idea that all press is good press. That's true for some of these guys who I don't think care about whether they're operating in the realm of truth or not. Not all press is good press for me. I didn't want this with Shawn Ryan. I didn't want to there's a reason, because again, my choice is, once I've decided that you can't be ignored because you're too big, you said what you said to too many people. So it's okay, do I make a video about you? I did that with David Goggins. It's he said a bunch of crap on this podcast, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to make a video about this. That was the way I figured to respond to that. Why do I have to respond? Because he has 5 million followers, and he said some stuff about SEAL Team 6 guys that was really messed up, and I didn't like what he said. He's just getting some things wrong about Mike Day, and it was just, anyway, that was a long time ago. But I made the decision then to just just make a video about it. Shawn, I was the last thing I want is a social media back and forth, but eventually that's what I got. And, because my other option is letting these lies just live out there. So do you want me to fight for my reputation or not? And it's not just my reputation. It's I represent people. People expect things of me, as you've noted many times, right? And they're right to. And so I do have to defend myself here, because it's not just my reputation I'm defending. It's it's the reputation of the constituents who actually vote me in. So you're damn right I'm going to fight. And then Shawn Ryan plays victim and acts I'm trying to be silenced. It's dude, that's not how this works at all. You know it. Don't act like you're so small and innocent here. And so I was and he's got such a big following, right? He's able to crush me in a social media war. And so I'm all right, well, let's go on your podcast like we're doing right now. And let's actually go into whatever you want to go into. And he goes, perfect. So January 2nd. So we move some things around. We make it where we do everything to make that work. I always knew it was going to, I was like, I bet they will, I know they're going to try and cancel. And that's exactly what happened. Literally 2 hours, I just happened to be in Virginia Beach, actually, with all my friends. It's just ironic. Because we always spend New Year's there, just with old friends who are out in Virginia Beach, SEAL teams. So I was 2 hours from my flight to go to Nashville on the 1st, and we see this video come out simultaneously with a letter from his lawyer. like claiming we didn't sign something. We're like, again, dude, like we have all the correspondence.
So
I published it all.
So
like,
in your binder, you have the agreement that you signed.
No, well, no, I have the communication. They never sent us the thing to sign. And then he claims that like it's all in there. Yeah, I could give it to you. But we posted it too. It's all over. It's on my social media because that was the only response I could put out. I was like, here it is. It was like, so this is the second, I think, was like a Friday. Okay, so I'm supposed to have the podcast on the Friday. So that Monday was the last time we ever heard from them. Because like we had questions, because they have some weird clauses in there, like that just didn't make sense legally. So we asked about, that was all we asked about.
So they did send it to you.
Yes, but hold on. And so we asked about things, and by Monday, then they had. So Shawn makes this claim that we wanted to add things or have a special agreement. It's like, well, first of all, this is a unique interview, Shawn. So like, it's not that crazy that we want to be careful with it. And we did have special demands, like I'm not going to let you. We didn't want to let him just edit things the way he wanted to. So like, because he agreed to a live interview on Twitter or on X, but then they immediately were like, oh, no, privately, we can't do that. We can't do live. I'm like, well, you agreed to it. Well, fine. Can we have a camera in there so that you can't go like editing something weird later? Okay, fine. Okay, so we like had those agreements. It was already special. And the only things again, I wasn't handling this personally. My lawyer was, because that's how Shawn wanted it. Our lawyers will talk. Remember, he said that. So I'm like, okay, like just make it happen, guys. Like that's kind of my direction. Just make it happen. It's the lawyer's job to protect me, I guess. So he's like, hey, these clauses about riding ATVs don't make any sense because we're not going to be riding ATVs. So can we just cross those out? And they're like, no, everyone gets the same one. I'm like, okay, fine. Like you'll get what you want. And then they wanted this is what they wanted on Monday. And they wanted another clause in there that specifically stated that the speech and debate clause law does not apply here and you can't use it. So the speech and debate clause is like, so if I say something provocative and slanderous on the House floor, I can't be sued for it. Okay, so it's just a longstanding law. Like there's total free speech on the House floor, I think is the idea. I don't know. I didn't write the law, but it's a thing. And they're like, that doesn't apply here. And we're like, weird that you bring this up. Of course it doesn't apply there. It's not that we're not going on the House floor. We're going to your studio and outside of Nashville. And so we have the letter, like we have my lawyer's correspondence, like, yeah, put that in there if you want. Okay. And that's the last we hear from them. So they're asking to add this thing, and then we say, sure, and then they don't send it. And then they claim on Thursday that we would refuse to sign it. And it's like, dude, here's all the correspondence. There's no refusal of, I have flights scheduled. Like, I'm ready to go. What is, just like, be honest with your freaking view. Have some respect for your own audience, for God's sakes. Like, stop lying to them. He just, and he gets away with it because it's like, we've got a big audience and it's really easy to hate the politician. But those are dude, I have all the evidence there.
All right, so just from if you want to call it a chain of custody standpoint, they sent the initial agreement to your attorney. You guys had issues with some ATV clauses.
Yeah, there's like 2 weeks of like going back and forth here, right?
And so the final was they asked you guys, or his attorneys asked your attorney to add.
No. It's their agreement that they want us to sign, so they would be adding it. And they're like, so we're waiting. Hey, send us. And then on Wednesday, on the production side, we reach out again. Like we would reach out the same way. You guys are a lot easier to work with. We're like, hey, we're ready to go. Like we're coming tomorrow. Like there's zero hesitation from my end. Like zero. I'm under the impression like we're doing this. It's like the legal stuff will just get sorted out. They wanted a way out. That's very obvious. And because they didn't want to have the kind of conversation we're having right now, because he'd already dug himself so deep into this. Like, if I came and showed him my financials, like, and so this binder was like actually meant for that interview. I wasn't like coming to like give you a bunch, but you can have it if you want. It's like you can literally have this binder.
I'll take it.
It's yours. And because there's all sorts of stuff in here. There's like 13 pages of all of our correspondence with Eddie's family. I want people to have that. And I want you to have the emails between me and Shawn. Again, they're on my social media already, but it's pretty clear like what's going on there.
But just, I guess, so that I understand and the viewer/listener can understand, the original agreements that were sent, you guys wanted some clauses taken out. They would take them out, or they wouldn't?
So he has a agreement actually very similar to yours. I think you guys might have had the same people write it. And we had the same question to you guys, actually. I don't know if you know this. Because some lawyer has written this for a bunch of podcasters. And my lawyer looks at it and says, this is bad legal language. This implies that like I would be responsible for defending you if you were sued by somebody else because of what you said on this podcast. That's like, he's like, it could be read like that. It needs to be stricter legal language. That was the one question we asked. So it's the same one we asked you guys. And you guys were like, no, it's not. That's not what it means. It's not meant that. Okay. That was all. Like literally my lawyer asked him, hey, if you don't mean it to be that way, like I'll take your word for it. Like that's literally in the emails. Like, and then we're good. That's what he says. It's like, dude, that's an agreement. Like just send us the final document and get it into my hand so I can sign it if that's what you want so bad. I figured I was just going to sign something when I showed up. That's what I figured. And the ATV thing is like, okay, so because Shawn's normal show would be very friendly, right? He's very friendly. Like, so this would be the only confrontational show I think he would have ever had. Maybe another reason he didn't want to have it, because he was going to come at me hard, and I was going to sit here and be like, well, here's your answers, just like I am with you. Now you're not coming at me hard, but like, I have a feeling he didn't know what to do with that. Like, how do you come at me? It's like, because I've done a million, interviews where it's usually with some left winger, like, or like The View, for instance. Like, that's a combative interview. I've done a million of those. Like, I'm not bad at them. He doesn't do that. He does friendly. He'll give you a gun or something, right? And he's, even whether you're Hunter Biden or Gavin Newsom, he's very friendly with you. And then he'll take you out on ATVs and go shooting. Like, that's what I understand to be the case. Of course, like, we were flying in and out because I had to go back to DC. Like, anyway, there was no way for me to stay, and we weren't friendly anyway. So it was like, it just wasn't an option. And so my lawyer's like, if we're not writing ATVs, why would we sign like liability waivers on ATVs? That was it.
I mean, is there an element of saying like, well, I'm not going to ride them, but who gives a shit? I'll sign
it. That is,
anyway.
And we said that. We're like, fine, keep it in then. We already, yes. Like, so this happened in like all of the weeks prior to that Monday that I'm talking about, which is the last we heard from them. So we say fine, because they keep trying to give us, look, this is what's happening, guys. Like, it should be obvious to anybody once you like really take a look at this objectively. And I don't care how much you love Shawn Ryan's show or you hate Dan Crenshaw. If you're just looking at the facts, it's pretty obvious what's going on here. There's a manufactured set of conflicts that happened that I didn't even participate in until I absolutely had to. And when I want to set the record straight live on a show, okay, he says yes, and then keeps looking for opportunities to get out of it. Like again, you should see the emails. They're intense. It's like, it's not lawyerly language. It's like, it's very, they're like trying to be a jerk to us. And we were like, fine, okay, geez. It's like my lawyer's just doing his job and saying like, hey, look, this is weird. That doesn't apply because we're not doing it. He's just doing his job. Like, if you asked me the question, should you just do it? Yeah, I don't care. I'll sign the liability waiver on the thing I'm not going to do. Sure. Who cares? So, that's what we said. So,
you had the initial document, right? That you could have signed that and sent it back.
I didn't have it. No, my lawyer did.
But yeah. I guess, that would be my question: is why not sign?
Why not let your lawyer do his job also? Because look, I'm dealing with a guy who's created this entire thing. I'm not dealing with a friendly agent here. So like we're going to do our due diligence and make sure. You're asking me like, why not just sign something you haven't read and don't care about? Come on, dude. Like,
I guess my question would be, at the end of the day, there was an agreement sent. I'm assuming then that your lawyer advised you not to sign the one that you guys had. He
didn't advise me anything. He just asked. He just is doing his job and is putting emails back and forth and being like, okay, what about this? And they gave him an answer. They said no. He said fine. Then he asked about it. He kept asking about this one, the same thing I asked you about, right? This weird indemnity clause. Anyway, it's lawyer talk. They all these concerns about it. And in the end, though, he was like, we're good. Like, as long as you don't mean it that way, we're good. Okay? But then they came back after all that because now all their excuses had gone away because we'd said yes already. and all their excuses have gone away. So they replied, not, hey, they didn't reply, hey, sign this contract. They replied, we need to change the contract for the speech and debate clause so that Dan doesn't think that he's free to say whatever he wants and we can't sue him for slander. And we're like, sure. Like, of course it doesn't apply because it's not on the House floor. So of course, like, go ahead.
So that was the last correspondence, is you saying put it in there, and then
Yeah. I mean, well, it's not me; it's my lawyer. But yes, it's like you want it in there. You want this thing extra added to it. Add it in there.
I guess, notwithstanding that, is that if I'm putting myself in your lawyer's shoes, and they say, hey, we want to add this, sure, and they don't add it, like, that's one less thing you have to agree to. Why not sign it and send it so you can say, hey, I signed your agreement and I sent it to you. It had everything.
Now we're nitpicking, like, in hindsight, like, so much. I'm like, I don't know. I'm barely involved in these correspondence. In my mind, this is just happening, and that's my lawyers too. Like, they're doing normal lawyer back and forth. This is. You're trying to make. I know you're trying really hard to make this my fault somehow.
No.
But it's like it's not.
I don't.
Like,
I
didn't try to get out of this at all. It was pretty obvious for the facts that he tried to get out of it, and eventually made up some reason, whatever works that people would believe if they don't look at the exact emails.
If there's one thing I can assure you of, I'm not trying to make this your fault. I'm trying to understand, because to me, what matters from an outsider looking in, like, I haven't read those, most people haven't, is, at the end of the day, it's like, if there's an agreement and you say, yep, I'll sign it and send it, and now you're saying, hey, the interview's off, or in the transverse, if it's like, if the blame is to be put on your attorney, saying,
I don't think it's I shouldn't blame the attorney either. Like, they want again, you can have all the emails, and they've already been posted publicly. The last correspondence we got from them was on a Monday. We were supposed to meet Friday for the interview. That correspondence was very clear. They wanted to add this new thing. We were like, sure. I think we were the last ones to send an email that was like, hey, we're good. Like, just we agree this House and the speech and debate thing doesn't apply.
And then nothing was
sent.
sent.
Then nothing was sent back. Okay. So it's like, dude, it's that simple. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you can ask me, what if you did this? Well, what if you tried this? I don't know. Like, what if I just begged him hard? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, man.
Again, I'm not trying to get to a predetermined conclusion. I'm just trying to understand the last thing. And
the last thing was us saying, like, like, sure, we're good. Like, everything is fine. Just do it already.
Yeah, I mean, if my inability to understand that with everything that you've said,
if you read the emails, you would see it, because we posted them.
I understand what you're saying now. At this point, would you still sit down with him?
Yeah, sure. I guess it's like kind of past us at this point. It's like,
I mean, I guess in the interim, if nothing else happens, would you still sue him?
I'm too busy to deal with it right now. I don't know. I don't want to say yes or no to that, because I don't know.
Or I guess I would ask, why haven't you sued him then?
Well, it just takes a lot of money and stuff that I don't really have. It's like a whole thing. The point was never to sue him. The point, it's like, I never said I was going to sue him, by the way. Like, you can't ever point to one single thing I've said where I'm going to sue Shawn Ryan. Like, that's his words, not mine. Now, there's an implication in a demand letter, right? You demand, it's a lawyer letter. So, yeah, I mean, people think they're going to get sued. But you're really doing that because you want them to explain themselves. Now, his explanation is a bunch of crap, right? He's like, I can't follow all of his rambling videos, but he goes on a lot about the insider trading. He's like, well, I can't possibly know because it's just what I read. Our demand letter never even, we briefly mentioned it, but it was never the issue. The issue was accusing me of threatening to assault you. That's a big deal. You can't, I got to take action on that. And his explanation was so insane. I mean, you're team guy. Like, if somebody says, hey, my boys at 6 told me you took this indirect swipe at me, would you actually read that to say that I'm threatening to get my guys together and come beat you up a year later? Like,
yeah,
come on.
I mean, for me, like,
it's just laughable. And so, like, the explanation he put out is it was meant to cover his ass legally. Well, I could interpret it this way. That's how I felt. That was a very carefully written legal language, even though it looked like it was authentic in that video. He's a good lawyer who's trying to cover his ass. He's like, no, it's true. Yes, you didn't say that, but I felt that way. It's like, all right, dude. Yeah. Got it. It's so dumb. Like, so it's like this whole thing. It's like, what back and forth? It's like, I'm just dealing with this dumb side quest that I don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. Like there's so many, like, that's not my job. And people are like, you should have just gone. You should have just gone and showed up. I'm like, first of all, he doesn't give out his address, so I'd have no place to show up to. You should have gone to Nashville and like social media. Oh, here's Shawn. Like, no, dude, like, no. I'm just going to spend the rest. I'm going to take that other time that he's now given me, and I'm going to spend it with my 2-year-old. It's like, and then I'm going to go back to work. Like, this is annoying at this point. So it's like, yeah, would I go on? I guess I wouldn't put the effort into it the way I was willing to before. He hasn't changed his mind. They clearly don't want that interview because, again, they don't want this binder. They don't want to have everything debunked. They don't want explanations for things. You know, I respect you, and I reached out to you privately because I knew we could have like a normal conversation privately and publicly. Not everybody's like that. And with Shawn, I knew it was going to be more combative, but I was still willing to do it. But he wasn't.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you explaining everything. Eddie Gallagher stuff.
Oh yeah, this one's like I've literally never even said anything. I'll answer questions about it, and especially now because he's like literally coming to my district, like to campaign against me. I'm like, holy crap. Hopefully he's reached. I don't know when this airs, but we actually just sent him a nice letter. I'm like Eddie, this is the first time like I'm even reaching out to you. Like, you know. Anyway, it's a nice letter. It's like, dude, like, here's all the facts. Maybe you actually don't know what happened. That's possible. I'm willing to believe that. But we did everything in our power to try and help you. And you're saying I try to keep you in, like, your belief is like the complete opposite of that. Like, how does that happen? Because, I mean, again, I got like 13 pages of correspondence with him and his family. I remember all this pretty well. And, you know, his brother's a lobbyist, so he knows how to kind of work this, just like get into office. He was good, and he showed his stuff. We showed a lot of interest, and put a lot of research into it. Called a bunch of guys on the West Coast. Most told me just stay the hell out of this. This is really messy. You can trust me. This is not something you want to get into. But I really wanted to believe in him, so I kept calling until I found a mutual friend who was like, okay. Like, let me kind of vouch for Eddie and get you in touch with the guy who was on that deployment. Not a SEAL, because no SEALs are allowed to talk about that, but like, it was a Marine who was willing to talk to me. So it gives me some background. I'm like, okay, that's enough to like keep going with this. And, you know, knowing of course that we're congressmen and we have really zero impact on the judicial proceedings in the military. That's just a fact. And we can write letters. Okay, so this is where this comes into play. This is where this, like, I think he's getting this from, or twisting it. I don't know. But there's 2 letters in Congress. Because, I mean, if you remember this time period, like, you know, that he's seen as this, like, you know, person who's being wrongly accused in the media, right? So it's popular to help him. And you know, whether he's guilty or not was never something we could weigh in on, or how could we? We don't have any evidence. We're not the jury. We're not the lawyers. We don't have any insight. But what was true was that he was being held in Brig Miramar with other like convicted felons, and that was not okay. That was true. And we focused on that as something that we could help with, because we could look at UCMJ standards and, you know, commands, whatever, military procedures, and say, like, are you really supposed to put people who are pre-trial into the same confinement as guys who, you know, are actual convicted murderers and, you know, all that, and he's not getting the access he needs to this and that? Like, that's something we can look at. So it's called WARCOM. WARCOM, of course, for those listening, you know what that is, but that's our basic SEAL command back in Coronado. I'm like, what can we do here? They're, you know, like, well, it's really not in our hands. It's in like Navy Southwest. I call that admiral. We write letters to them, showing some concern, like with Eddie's treatment. We demand that the Secretary of the Navy actually comes to my office and like explains like what the heck's going on. So we do this is weeks of doing this kind of stuff. Eventually there's a letter that circulates that's just like, it's a very simple letter. It was led by like Duncan Hunter, who's, you talk about corruption. There's a big case. He was convicted of a bunch of corruption, putting a ton of using campaign funds for all sorts of like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stuff. That's why he's not a congressman anymore. And but he was leading this letter, so not the greatest, and also had a pretty bad reputation. But also the kind of congressman who, let's be honest, like isn't really looking into anything, just wants to like look good. And it was easy to look good if you were just like, you got a free Eddie Gallagher. He's innocent. It made you look good at that time. So there's this letter circulating that was just demanded that the Navy just let him go, like until trial, just totally free. And so we looked into that. We're like, is this possible? Like, we talked to talking to Warcom, and the Warcom's like, well, this is what they told me. I don't know if it's true or not, but they're like, no, he threatened his accusers too. So there's more to this story. And I'm like, okay. And his accusers, by the way, are, 4 of his own platoon guys. Like, it's not like this is big Navy trying to hurt, like, the story is his actual guys turned on him. I've never seen that in my freaking life. Have you? It's a bit of an odd one. But again, it's not up to us, any of us really, to judge guilt or innocence, because we're not the jury and we don't have access to all the facts anyway. So, okay. But I can help with this. I can help with getting you out of the brig into something that makes more sense. So let's first explore this idea that it's even possible to free him. Absolutely not. That's a hard no from the Navy, like a hard no. It doesn't because of the severity of the charges, first degree murder, and also threatening of accusers. They're like, it's just it will never happen. So he's like, okay, so the letter is useless. So again, like as an objective person, I'm not emotionally invested in this. His family is, and I like appreciate that. And they were like, I was like, man, I wish my family, I would hope my family would fight for me just as hard as Andrea did and his brother Shawn. That's great on them. But like, I have to do the objective research and figure out like how I can actually help him. And putting my name on that letter takes away some credibility, because it's just like it's a throwaway letter. There's letters circulating through Congress all the time, and it's like, be in support of this or what of this, and then people can go back and say like, look, I saw this letter, or they have their staff look at it. Hey, it's just yeah, that's fine. That's kind of like how it works. And so if you really want to write a letter that'll get you somewhere, it's got to be well researched, and we did that research. We worked with the JAGs, or worked with lawyers on the Armed Services Committee that actually has oversight. We worked with the Navy Legislative Office, and we figured out like what is actually possible. Because we're like, what about house arrest? Is that a thing? And they're like, it's absolutely not a thing under the ECMJ. And we're like, all right, wait, what about like confinement to base or less restrictive standards? And they're like, that could be a route. We're like, okay. And that's working with kind of our people who know the systems inside the House, because the military is not being super cooperative on this. Like I said, I could call the Secretary of the Navy into my office. That didn't get me anywhere. So, all right, so let's write the perfect request that has to be taken seriously, not a request that will be dismissed. You can sign your name to that request; it'll be dismissed. So, why do it? Because so we drafted a different letter, and that letter asked for get him out of Brig Miramar and into like confinement to base standards, like something where he could visit his family and get everything he needed, all that. And we get that done. We get actually, and this is important. The reason you needed something that was actually that reflected reality versus your wishes or your PR campaign was because even the ranking member, the Republican ranking member of the Armed Services Committee, then Mac Thornberry, he wouldn't sign the other letter either. So I'm like, all right, well, we've got to do the research ourselves because nobody else is doing it. Nobody else in Congress is doing it. They're acting like they are. Like they'll tweet something, but they're not doing any research on like what actually is necessary to help him. And so we get him to sign our letter because it's the realistic letter. We get Jim Jordan to sign our letter because he's the ranking member of Judiciary. So kind of some overlapping jurisdiction there. And I don't know if it's coincidence or not, but because we also did a media blitz, like putting out on Fox News, putting out an article that we did this, that we're trying to get him out of these unfair conditions that he's in. 2 weeks later, Trump makes this. That was like March, because we just went over this. It's like, I want to say it was like March 18th of 2019, and like it was like 12 days later, the famous action that Trump takes was exactly what we asked for in the letter.
So did you guys?
How am I? I was like, dude, I don't understand this accusation that I try to keep you in prison. Like, what? It's just.
Did you guys submit that second letter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, like on March 18th, 12 days later, on March 18th, along with like a media blitz, and then 12 days later, the thing in the letter happens. Like, I cannot say that that's the thing that made Trump do it. I can't say that. I don't know. But it's kind of a coincidence after months of like trying a bunch of other stuff that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know, man. Like I've ignored. So again, there's no back and forth. It's important because your initial question is like, why do you have these back and forths with people? And I think the common theme here is like, I don't. I literally don't. Like I've never made a video about Eddie. I've never like posted back at him. I've just not done it. Like I've let him fall into that category of like 99%. I'm just not going to respond to this because it's getting to the point where I kind of have to talk about it because it just keeps at it.
Have you met him?
No.
I mean, would you meet with him?
Yeah. He makes that other claim too that like I avoided, like I ran away from him or something. I'm like, where are you getting this from? Like it's like I think we were at the same event. It was like a Turning Point event. Like this is obviously after, he was free and fine. And he says like I saw him coming and like I'm like, well, dude, what are you talking about? Like I just don't even know what he's referring to in that.
Do you recall an instance, and I don't recall the exact date, but where he was at Capitol Hill meeting with Zinke, and Zinke contacted you and said that he was there and to come meet with him, and you wouldn't? That's
possible. I mean, but it could have been for a number of reasons. I don't know.
You don't remember?
I don't remember that.
I mean,
it's possible. I mean, I like, especially if it was after he's like made these claims against me. Yeah, it's like I'm not going out of my way, dude. Like to come talk to you, and also with a bunch of other members. Why? Like there's not a lot of good faith here already, in my opinion. So, again, the first time we've reached out to him is like send him this letter that basically explains everything I just explained to you. Because I'm like, all right, I'll take a step back here, and maybe I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and think like you actually don't know all this. Maybe you don't. I don't know. Maybe you do and don't care. I don't know. But this is dumb. Like I truly tried to help you, like in all fucking honesty, and I did. Like, I think it was successful. Not only did I try, but I think I was the only one who was trying to be successsul.
Yeah.
And so it's just like weird. It's a weird like accusation.
But from Eddie's perspective, he's been on the show. I know him fairly well. The perspective on his end is that he wanted to meet with you when he was at Capitol Hill or on Capitol Hill. He was with Zinke.
Then he should have reached out to us. Like, what is he talking about? I don't know what I never got any message from Eddie. If he wanted to meet so bad, he knows how to get a hold of me. That's a lame argument. So like that's what caused him to then lie about me.
Well, the other one was that
no, because that would have happened after. I mean, the request would have happened probably after he's already put out these videos, because that happened years ago, right? And I've just been like, what? I just ignored it. I mean, like I can't engage in everything, and like so that's why I'm like, dude, I've never even engaged in this.
Yeah,
this is probably the most I've ever talked about it.
Yeah,
like right now is literally the most I've ever talked about it, because it's yet another example of like this manufactured conflict that never existed.
Well, the other thing that he mentioned was that three congressmen, Ralph Norman, Matt Gaetz, and Louis Gohmert, do those names ring a bell?
Yeah.
He mentioned that all three of them said that you had interacted with him and told them, hey, this is a SEAL community thing. Stay in your lane. Stay out of it.
Maybe, I don't know. I know that I know those guys are definitely on like the throwaway letter, as I would call it, a letter with no consequence. And I know that I was actually trying to do the right research so that we could actually get an outcome. I was outcome oriented, and like, yeah, you know what? In hindsight, would have been way easier for my own just well-being, and like could have just focused on other things. And I could have just signed the other letter, the throwaway letter. Sign it. Who cares? Be done with it. Say, I did my best. It's what you wanted. You just wanted me to sign a letter. I could have done that. That would have been way easier than what we actually did.
You are still willing to meet with him at this point?
I don't really care. I mean, sure. Yeah. I mean, I told him in this letter we just sent to him, like, hey, dude, if you want to talk, we'll talk.
Yeah.
So I mean, I literally just sent that, like,
I mean, to me,
snail mail to him. So yeah, I guess, yeah, I'd say it here too.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I would love to make that happen, just from I would rather.
I'd be really curious to see, like, if he really believes. I mean, that's what I'm kind of. I'm just.
No,
like,
I would love to see you guys bury the hatchet and get along. Like,
there's no hatchet. It's such a weird phrasing to me, because it implies that there's some conflict, and I'm like, I have never done anything to you at all except try to help you. Like, that's
how about
all
bury
I've
the
ever done.
perceived hatchet? How about that? Would that be fair?
Well, yeah, I guess, yeah, if we're going to be careful with our words, then yeah. Because I've like, again, it's the implication here is that there's like this public conflict, and I'm like, when have I engaged?
Yeah.
I've never done it. The only thing I've ever done, is go on the news and talk about how we're trying to get him out of the brig that he's being mistreated at. That's the only thing I did publicly. And this is the second time I've ever answered questions like this. So there's no hatchet to bury. Like, there's just somebody who's accusing me of something that's very untrue and should know what that's like. So I don't understand. It's just dumb.
Yeah.
And like, I don't have time to like do all of it,
No, I understand you have a lot of things going on. Again,
there's more important things, whether it's raising a daughter or doing my job, than like trying to bury this so-called hatchet, this perceived hatchet, just because he wants to make videos about me. Like, it's like at a certain point, it's just not very serious anymore.
Yeah. So I guess and we'll finish it after this. If he reached out to you and said, "Hey, I'd love to meet," behind closed doors,
which he never has.
But
it's very easy to do that.
But if he did, how would he go about doing that to make that?
He knows how to do it. I mean, you could write our office. We have our phone numbers published. It's like the easiest thing in the world is to get a hold of your representative. It would be on our radar very quickly.
Okay.
There's no way that could like escape our notice. That like, hey, Eddie's wants to have a private meeting with. Like, there's no way that would escape our notice. I'm sorry, but like saying like, well, somebody else told you about we're all meeting together. It's like, okay, maybe not. I don't remember, but. Also, if I got invited to this group meeting, like well after he's already accused me of this stuff, it's like, dude, like I'm not going in there to have any drama with you. If you wanted to have a private meeting, you could have reached out and done that. Because like, dude, I have all the emails with his family, all of them.
Yeah.
And
have you posted those also or no?
They might be on our website.
Okay.
Like, I'll give them to you. You're gonna get those today, and. We leave on a good foot. Like they didn't like that there was 2 letters. They didn't like that, to be fair. But my job was not to do it was to help Eddie. That was my job in my mind, to get an outcome.
Right.
So they didn't like it, and I think that's where this conflict comes from. But I'm like, my job isn't to do what you like. I'm trying to help you the best way I can. You got to kind of trust me. Like, this is the only way to get an outcome.
Yeah.
Because we've looked into this, and then we leave it on good terms. We really do. Like, again, I have all the evidence. So it's always been so strange to me. Like, that he has this perspective. So just like,
I mean, like I said,
I can't correct everything.
No, I understand, and I can imagine, being in that position. Like I said, for more than anything, I would just love to see you guys get along and move past it and not have any issues.
That would be lovely. But, he's coming to campaign for a pretty rotten guy to unseat me from office. So I don't think he has any intention of sitting down anytime soon. Like, I don't know. Send him a nice letter. I sent him a nice letter. We'll see if he reads it.
Yeah, he communicated to me that he would still like to sit down.
His actions speak louder than
words.
Do
Agreed.
Because like, it's one thing to say that
for sure.
Then like, come on.
Yeah. All right, guys. Let me be straight with you. Sometime around my mid-30s, I would say that things started to slip. Same workouts, but worse results. I'd crash most afternoons, and the mirror wasn't telling me anything that I wanted to see. I went down the rabbit hole, and everything pointed towards kind of the standard low testosterone symptoms. I did look at TRT, but realizing that it comes with needles every week, shutting down natural production, as well as the thousands of dollars per year, and frankly, the roller coaster of spikes and peaks and valleys, I just didn't want to deal with it. It's a hard pass. Mars Men sent me their stack for free, and my honest opinion is this is the route I'm going to take. I like to support my body naturally. I don't like replacing anything artificially unless I absolutely have to. It is a natural testosterone support system. It's got ingredients like Tongkat Ali, Shilajit, zinc, boron, and it's designed to help your body make use of what it already produces. There's no synthetics, no needles, and for me, the biggest change has been a steady increase in energy all day long with faster recovery. So, for a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. It's a perfect way to kick off the new year strong. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. If you could please support our show and tell them that Mike Drop sent you. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. I'm not saying that you have a questionable military representation or reputation, rather.
You're always going to have a questionable reputation as a politician. It doesn't matter who you, like, there's people who hate you and love you. The thing about being a politician is you have an exact number of people who don't like you. And you see it in the election. It's like, this exact number of people really don't like me. That's politics. Like, it just is.
Yeah.
You know, that's the job.
I guess with that, why do you still do it, and do you want to keep doing it?
Yeah, we still do it because you still got things to fight for. It's like I said, this has been the best work year we've had. It's an annoying political year because it's like it's primary season. So like you're seeing all this kind of crap pop up. It's not a coincidence at all. It's not a coincidence. And like these people are definitely like in cahoots. Like Tucker and Shawn are absolutely communication. You know, there's a lot of relationships there, and none of this is by accident. He just didn't like randomly bring me up close to my primary. It's not an accident. So, but that being said, it's like, why is the job still worth doing? Well, my work on the Intelligence Committee is absolutely worth doing. You don't have me in there, then you have somebody who doesn't know anything about the CIA or the DIA or how any of this stuff works. Like, didn't do the job, like, as a human guy, like I did. Like, this is, you know, this is important things. These are the important things I'm thinking about while you're asking me, like, why don't I have a letter from I'm like, that's why it throws me off guard, because I'm like, I don't know, like, I'm doing other things, I guess. Like, that's what my job. Like, so and that's why I keep doing it, because the job is actually pretty good. Politics sucks. My job is not politics. My job is the legislation.
Yeah, well, I think it speaks to your world versus my world in that way, is that, you know, I'm not in Washington. I don't see those things. I have no idea what you do day in, day out. You know,
You could, because we post about it and it's very public.
Yeah.
You just see what people, you're watching narratives, man. Like, that's the thing. You could know. You could easily know. I'm like, we post about it all the time. It's like this legislation or this hearing, it's boring. Doesn't get a lot of traction because we're posting about policy issues. But you could know. You could know what my subcommittees I'm on. You could know the hearings I'm doing. All of this is public. But we're just like focused on narratives in the comment section. It's like, if you want me to focus on narratives in the comment section too, then I'll never get to do my job. And I think I'm supposed to be doing my job. That's the reality. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, I can tell you what we do. Like I kind of mentioned that earlier. Like, what do I major in? Energy and environment. Do you want to talk about the Clean Air Act? Do you want to talk about the Toxic Substance and Chemicals Act and how we're going to reform? I mean, like, that's some nerdy stuff of EPA regulation. That's my job. I want to talk about how we reform Medicaid and how we made sure to protect Texas from it getting screwed. When we did the Big Beautiful Bill, we talk about that. That's my job, to know those kind of details. Yeah, you want to, we talk about, well, it's hard to talk about a lot of stuff we do in the Intel Committee, but that's my favorite work, and it's so necessary.
What can you say about it?
Well, I don't know. What are your questions?
Well, I mean, like, to go from the BUBS in the office, what do you do here? Like, what can you share of the things that you actually accomplish?
There's only one open hearing per year, maybe two. I mean, we could do more, but like, it's all at the TS level. It's the one committee you get on that's truly, every congressman technically has a TSSCI. And people hear that and they're like, no way. I'm like, yeah, you're elected. You get a TSSCI. That being said, you're not getting access. Only our committee of jurisdiction gets access. And armed services and appropriators who oversee certain things, like their leadership, will get full access as well. But it is a very small group of people, and it's only chosen by the speaker. So that's also what makes it different. Everything's at the classified levels. It's constant briefings and hearings. It's by far the busiest because your own personal staff does not have a clearance, so they can't know anything. They can't do anything for you. So I do it all using the committee staff. So there's every staff on Capitol Hill. There's personal office and there's committee staff. The committee staff's doing like the really nitty gritty work on that specific policy issue. Our staff, we have maybe 3 or 4 that we can hire, that we can afford really within our budget, that we can fit in an office. And they'll have a whole portfolio within each one of them. And on committee, you're really specializing. So that's at the staff level. And since I'm a subcommittee chairman on defense intelligence, I do a lot of work, and literally like 2/3 of our, issues, let's say, are within that area. And so it's a lot of work, but it's really rewarding. The whole thing is rewarding.
Is there a vague generality that you can say this area we've worked in and have made good progress?
Yeah. Like one of the problems, so I became chairman of the subcommittee basically about a year ago. And immediately kind of what we notice is we oversee how we're getting our imagery from commercial entities versus government satellite imagery, how we're mixing that all together using AI to make it more coherent and easier to read, so the operator in the end can get what they need really quickly, and then we can also just do analysis. I'm like, look, we're chasing boats, or we're chasing people, or we're chasing vehicles, or whatever. How can we better utilize and better fund the current technology that's out there? It's pretty fantastic. There's a lot of companies doing it, and make sure that our operators don't have a very different experience than what you and I had. So NGA, so the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, right? They make those little, products that you and I are used to seeing, where it's you see the target, and it's they do really good work on it. That wall is 9 feet, and all that analysis. We need to get that quicker and sooner. That's kind of the best way I can put it. Because it's super complicated, and we're going to end up down a rabbit hole, and that isn't even interesting to people. There's a lot of other things that I can't really get into. That's kind of something that I think we can talk about it.
Yeah.
It's hard, the rest of the stuff is very sensitive, but
I got it.
But it's good work, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I'd love to talk about term limits. That's a buzzword that you hear a lot. And I watched most of your interview with Andy, and I saw some of the comments you made. And I'll be the first to admit some of the things you said I actually think make a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's I'll give you the answer I give you. I was look, I'm in favor of them because the American public's in favor of them. We'd have to decide on a year that makes sense. But I'll also give you the truth. The truth is, if you're a Texan, you seem to like the way your government's going. You're not demanding term limits in Texas. So it's funny when Texans make the argument because nobody's demanding it here in our own state.
Well, to me,
there's no term limit. By the way, there's no term limits in Texas for any representative, the governor, or no term limits, and there's no limits to how much you can contribute to their campaigns. It's all free. It's it's a kind of it's more of a libertarian ideal. So okay, just throwing that out there. I don't think even people even realize it. So we don't have term limits either. Our founders didn't put that in there. They didn't put any term limits on the president. Our founders didn't think they were necessary. They thought elections were your term limits, and so they are. And so if you automatically term limit, there is some things people need to understand about just what happens, who wins. Are you winning as the people? Are you winning? And they'll say yes, because I'll get rid of Nancy Pelosi. And I'm like, okay, so you actually want a say not in your own district, but in somebody else's district. Okay, I got it. I'm not sure that's exactly what you're intending, but that's effectively what you're saying. And also, who the hell is going to replace Nancy Pelosi? Do you think some moderate person? No, it's San Francisco, man. You're going to get I always joke, you're going to get somebody who's in favor of 1,000 genders and identifies as a dolphin on Thursdays. That's, and purple hair. That's the kind of person that's coming out of that district. That district's going to keep voting for the same kind of person. I hate to break it to you. That's what's going to keep happening because the people there want something and they're going to keep voting that in. So you're not changing, I promise you're not changing anything fundamentally. You're definitely institutionalizing an experience. It's like saying like, look, we should have new guys, the whole platoons of new guys, because experience is bad. It's like, what? Why? Because it is. It's like, why? I can't. Still not sure why. And who do you empowering? Well, you're not. Again, I'm not seeing how you're empowering voters because first voters can already throw their guy out or girl out anytime they, on every election cycle, which is pretty often. It's every 2 years. And so who are you empowering? Well, definitely staff, Capitol Hill staff, committee staff. It's already hard enough to figure out the system, and get around them. It does take a few years, and you're like, I see your games now.
I assume there's no term limits on staff.
No.
Yeah. Do you think that would make sense? Or is it the same problem?
It's the same problem. Now you have way less experience. It's already, honestly, and also the last time I looked at the actual average term, it was 7 years in the House. I'm sure it's got to be lower now just because of the waves of retirements we've seen. So you've already got very short terms. And again, people will use examples of a certain congressman that's been there for 40 years or senator. I got it that there's some, but the vast majority are changing out so fast that honestly, there's already too much inexperience.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're dealing with, again, we've had this conversation about the immigration policy. It's not like we're dealing with super simple issues. You're dealing with highly complex issues, whether it's how to get geospatial intelligence right with the commercial sector, or how to do Medicaid reform, or how to deal with asylum seekers at the border, or you have to specialize. I'd love to live in a simpler world, but it's not the world we live in.
Yeah.
So legislating in that world is complex, and you do have to have some experience. So you're definitely empowering the staff, and then you're definitely empowering the administrative bureaucracy, the executive branch under the president, whoever the president is. Because look, our job is to try and check and balance that. And the more inexperience you have, or if they know you're leaving, you just don't have the leverage. But if they think you're going to be moving up and become chairman and become the one who maybe either sends them or doesn't send them money, you start to have, there's actually a back and forth. Am I in favor of them? Sure, because it makes people, but I'm also going to be really honest with you about maybe why Texas doesn't choose to have them.
Yeah.
And that's probably why.
No, I can appreciate that. I mean, from your perspective, is there a way to kind of have both?
I don't know. Maybe come up with a right number of years, but man, you have to also change the Constitution, by the way. So this is not like a bill we can just pass. This is you'd have to, changing a constitutional amendment is a pretty serious endeavor.
Yeah.
It takes a lot more than a few congressmen who want something, and we need some good reasoning behind it. And if I just kind of I just laid out all that reasoning, that's why it doesn't make sense. And nobody can tell me why it does make sense. Well, I'm not going to put a lot of more effort into finding what's the right number of years. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I understand that, and I can't pretend to think that there's any other or any better, frankly, way of limiting somebody's terms than to just vote them out.
You just vote, and maybe people just need to go vote more. I mean, you got primaries coming up in Texas on March 3rd, and we have generally a 14% turnout rate.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's pretty bad.
It's pathetic. With the kind of campaign season coming around, I think one impression a lot of people have is that once people get into office, they spend, just absurd amount of time trying to get reelected, and their job becomes just trying to stay in office.
It is absurd. If you're being attacked from all sides, and people are trying to mess with you, and because while you're working in Washington, they can be knocking doors back home, being oh, he's making stuff up. So that's politics. That's what happens.
There's really no way around that.
Yeah, except people just have to kind of catch it, see it for what it is.
Yeah.
There was a time, before the 90s, everyone knows this, it's all congressmen moved to D.C. That's what they did. They moved their families there. And the theory, too, is that they also worked together better because their families were living there together. Nobody lived in their district. It was in the early 90s that changed a lot. It became a political liability because everyone's well, we sent it to D.C. and he never, he left us all behind. It's okay, so now it's a political liability. So you absolutely can't live there. So now it's always this like constant back and forth between home and DC, and that didn't exist actually before the 90s. So that's a new reality. I'm not sure people really know that. That's fine. I don't want to live in DC. I don't, Houston just feels more like home. I like it. I don't want to live there. But we're on, a plane 2 or 3 times a week.
Is there an average week for you?
No, it's like, what does a day look like? It's really hard to describe. I mean, a day in DC could be a number of things like, okay, we got a committee hearing on X number of subjects, maybe a markup, or we're literally marking up legislation that we've been working on for a while and then voting to pass it out, because I'm on 2 big committees with subcommittees that have a lot of work. So I mean, that's taken up, there's at least something happening every day on that end. Then there's votes 3 times a day, probably approximately, let's say, like 3, so you're walking into the House floor, waiting on those votes, and then you're doing that, and then you're coming back, you have meetings and something, pick your subject. But no day is the same. I suppose that makes it interesting. Again, I like why I keep doing it, because you make why do you get into politics and not just policy? Because you make an impact amongst a broader set of issues that matter. That's why I keep doing it. Even though people are back home are lying about you and saying things that just aren't true, or on the internet, if you're in my case, because it's more well known. But like every politician deals with what I'm dealing with on some level. I just deal with it on a bigger level because I just do.
Yeah. In terms of votes and bills, a very common, I think, complaint that I hear and frankly even have myself, I'd love to get your impression of it. These, enormous bills that so many people you hear like didn't even read it, and there's all this stuff that people are voting for. They don't even know what they're voting for. I'm not naive to the fact that there's a shit ton of things that need to be voted on, and if you tried to separate them into individual bills, nothing would ever get done.
Yeah.
On the same token, it doesn't seem like voting for a bunch of shit, A, that you don't even know what's in there, or B, I have to vote for transgender rights in schools if I want the government funded and the military to have bullets. That doesn't seem like really a better option.
It's politics. I mean, it's if you can give me a better system, we'll take it. It's like, is it, because you remember your other question, like, is this the best system? I'm like, I don't know. It's the best one we found so far. Clearly, it's definitely not the best, but it's the best one we've found. So, yeah, I mean, you kind of answered your own question there, like, why are bills sometimes so big? I don't think people should be like, well, I didn't know what I voted on. That's not a good answer. Some congressmen say that, or they use that as an excuse not to vote for it. But the reality is they can know, when even the longest bills, I mean, there are a lot of people that are reading through them, creating summaries of them. Like, we've been working on this stuff for a while, so it's not like it's just you're surprised all of a sudden by things. You also have some element of trust in your fellow congressman, Republican side in this case, that like, if you're doing an ag bill, an agricultural bill, that's not my subject. So you have to have some trust in like what they're still reading, like looking through it, making sure there's like no crazy things happening. But most of those conflicts would have been worked out already, because there's such a long process before anything even comes to the floor, and it happens in those committees. And so I don't like it when other congressmen are like, I just didn't know. We can't possibly know what's in there. Like, yes, you can. There's ways. And no, it's not like we're not like sitting like by candlelight and reading 1,000 pages, but there's plenty of ways to know what's in there. Remember how I explained like how legislation is and why it's so long? One of the reasons is because it's written in this crazy legal language, and it's not what you've read. Okay, like you said, you've read legal language before. This is very different. This is like editing legal language, so it's totally that's why it also is so many pages. Sometimes the bill can be 1 page. Like it totally depends.
So with that, I mean, the people who are doing the summarizing, it seems like that's could be a pretty powerful or influential position. If it's my job to summarize what you read and decide whether or not you're going to vote yes or no on, like the people that are doing that need to be pretty trustworthy. No,
well, the people. Well, you're trusting. Yeah, they do have to be trustworthy, of course. You rely on staff a lot. I mean, it's a team. So, yes, it's a process for sure. The summaries of specific legislation will come out not from personal staff, though. That's going to come from committee staff that are like super, got like a PhD level in that particular policy set. So, we hire based on politics too. Like I'm not hiring a Democrat to work in my office. It's just, that never happens.
What is the vetting process for that?
Which, it's just like any job interviews and, trying to get a better understanding of like where they've been, what I'll ask them if it's a policy specific position. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions, like policy questions, like what would you say about this? What's your opinion on this? I'll see if it jives with kind of how I know about it, what I know about it. So, and then as they get more advanced, that's how they'll eventually get to a committee's job. So there is sort of a career path there.
Yeah. Are those interviews ones that you always conduct, or
well, for my personal office? Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Speaking of bills and kind of dovetailing off of that into foreign aid, another, I think enormous heartburn people have, myself included, is seeing the amount of foreign aid that goes from taxpayer dollars to, countries that, a lot of people I don't think agree should be receiving that foreign aid. And again, I don't know if there's a way to separate, maybe this is unrealistic and shows my naivete, but to separate, anything that's leaving the United States, i.e. from the taxpayer's dollar, gets separated out into a specific bill where you can say, look, in terms of accountability for your representation, is to say you voted on this singular bill that's authorizing, $10 billion to Egypt, and that's bullshit. Is there a way to do that, or is that unrealistic?
It'd be pretty complicated to make it a tax. I think I understand what you're suggesting. Look, obviously, I agree. Like this, whether it was my time in the military or my time in Congress, you talk about like USAID, and the whole point of aid would be it should be transactional to some extent. Obviously, right? We're getting something out of it. Now, sometimes you could argue there's benefit to getting a good image. That could be true. That's an argument. But ideally, you want more tangible things, and I think USAID got a bad reputation over time for good reason. I could tell. I remember going through embassies, doing my job as a SEAL, and kind of seeing that culture in State Department. Like, we got this meeting, and we got this money going to like whatever. I'm like, why are you excited about that? Who cares? Like, what are we like? It wasn't clear to me, and I think clear to the organization that the culture was not what I just described it should be, which was you should be getting something for this, and we should be able to explain what it is. That's why there was this big uproar, and USAID was kind of the first victim of the new Trump administration for good reason, because their reputation has not been good over these years. As far as like change it, I don't know how we would change the tax code. That sounds pretty complicated for supporting something or not supporting something. But
to me, I don't think it's
complicated.
Yeah, to me, at least from my perspective, it wouldn't necessarily need to be a tax code change. It's just, if the United States is going to send money abroad, is that shouldn't be packaged into a farm bill, where if you don't vote on it, farmers are getting screwed. But
it is how it works, though. Because going back, that was one of the reasons you kind of answered the question yourself. It's like,
I just mean that as one specific thing. I understand you can't separate everything out, but to me, like there's a principle aspect to me paying tax dollars and our elected officials saying we're going to just blow that overseas and tough shit.
Every vote you take, you have to analyze it with the pros and cons. If there's no perfect button, there's just a yes or no. Those are your options. You can drag the Speaker of the House and the Senate leader in here, and they'll explain to you how they have 1,000 people outside their office. By people, I mean members, with totally different opinions on how everything should go. And so, and they would explain how they have to manage that. And how annoying it is, and how impossible it is. And so again, I think because you kind of answered your own question. It's like, why do these annoying omnibus bills happen? They haven't happened recently. We've actually passed most appropriations bills as they're supposed to be passed, and people are like, great. And I'm like, the 12 appropriations packages. By the way, that's often it's often cited as like this sort of sacred thing that needs to happen. It doesn't happen that way in the Texas budget, just so you know.
No, again, I understand the omnibus
Yeah.
standpoint. The one distinction that I'm trying to make is foreign aid by itself. Anything foreign aid wise.
We could demand that. There wouldn't be enough. You'd have to have the votes to make that a thing, and you wouldn't have the votes because most people think there's some value to it. We just think it needs to be administered a lot better. Definitely trust Rubio to be doing that as opposed to Biden's administration. Because there is value in something like that. You can't. I don't think it's. I would just disagree on that. If your goal is just not have that happen at all, I would call that a bad step in the wrong direction. Because it does make some sense, but we need to be doing it in a way that America actually benefits from it, and it needs to be overseen better. So I think that's where that distrust comes from. Is that we've seen years, and I see. Like I said, I've gave you some personal anecdotes where that's not done well. That's what needs to happen. I think that's the change. I mean,
yeah, I think most people, they look at, again, I'll use myself as an example, what does my day-to-day look like when I see almost $40 trillion in debt? I see inflation skyrocketing. I see homelessness, the VA is a fucking mess. And we're sending, hundreds of billions of dollars overseas every year. Like, that's pretty frustrating.
Yeah, I understand that. It's also, if you want to, I don't know how you want me to explain it. I could explain the budgetary aspects of it.
Well, I guess I would just ask on a very singular principle level, from your perspective, are you saying, or do you think?
I think diplomacy is pretty important.
That it's worth
it. I think involvement. Look, this is an isolationist versus an intervention, like a argument versus a counter-isolationist argument, and you need to be involved in the world because the world is a lot smaller than I think some people want to believe. It's easy to believe there's nothing out there. But the biggest war of conquest since World War II is happening, and it's a 9-hour flight. So the world is indeed very small. It's not this. I mean, it's been small for a long time. Like, if you look at the House of Representatives, there's two major paintings on the wall on either side of the Speaker's chair. One is George Washington. The other is General Lafayette. Who is he? A French general that decided that it was in the French interest, the general didn't decide, the French decided it was in their interest to sail across the ocean to battle the British on our behalf. They decided that was in their interest. That was back in the 18th century. The world was very small even back then. Like, if you understand what I mean by big and small.
I do.
And so it's extremely tiny now. Information travels at, speed of nothing, a light. And America, it's pretty obvious, should be obvious, that if America withdraws, the Chinese and the Russians and not the Venezuelans anymore, but so the Cubans and the Iranians are like right in there. That's happening everywhere. So I don't like our options. I'm not saying like I love that, we have to spend this money, but also take into account that you have the life you live right now because on D-Day, we decided that we would lead the world. That was the day. That's a pretty important day in history. And that was the day America decided to actually lead the world. And since that time, there's been no world wars, and American life has gotten infinitely better in just every single way, by every single metric. Now, does that help people who are struggling right now? No, but I still have to put these things in perspective so that you understand the bigger picture here. We control the global supply chains. We can put sanctions and like coerce people. We can do so many things because we decided that we would be that power. You can give that up if you want and hope that the Chinese are that's the same kind of, kind benevolence that we've had over the last, 82 years almost. 82 years coming up for D-Day. I think about that day quite a bit because that is the day. And why was it in our interest to send tens of thousands of guys to their deaths in Europe to defeat Hitler? We all celebrate it like it's a good thing. Have we changed our minds? So, look, and as far as the budget, it's like when we talk about foreign aid and all this, it's less than 1%, if that. I mean, it's fractions. People are like, well, nobody's spending money on me. Like, actually, about 70% of our spending is entitlement spending. So all your Social Security, your Medicare, your Medicaid, interest on the debt. Then you've got your VA benefits. That accounts for like a ton. And I mean, a ton of like, outside that 70%. It's not even counted. The VA benefits aren't even counted in that 70%. So we have mandatory spending and discretionary spending. So you got 2/3 and a third. The third, most of that's taken up by the military. So we're almost to $1 trillion military budget. Okay. You can argue against that. You can say we shouldn't have that budget. We shouldn't. Okay. But again, I would make the same argument I just made about, do you want us to lead the world? Do you want China to? That's another half of it. So by the time you get to all these like alphabet soup agencies, you're talking about like 11% of the budget. And so it just got to put that in perspective so people understand like what kind of numbers we're talking about. I know it might seem like a lot. It's truly not. And also, do you want us to, what's your vote then? Do you want me to just like hand out checks? I thought we were against that as conservatives.
February has a way of testing discipline. January starts strong, better routines, earlier nights, and then life creeps back in. Late nights return, schedules get chaotic, and sleep is usually the first thing sacrificed. And here's the truth. Taking care of yourself isn't about perfection. It's about having habits that you can return to. That's why Dream by Beam has become a non-negotiable for me. Beam sent me Dream for free. In my honest opinion, once I started using it, everything changed. I sleep through the night, I shut my mind off, and I wake up energized, not groggy. Dream is made with reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, apigenin, and melatonin, designed to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling solid. No next day fog, and it tastes great. I've been drinking the chocolate peanut butter flavor that they sent me, and it's like hot cocoa before bed. Until I started using Dream, I didn't realize how much bad sleep was holding me back. Now I'm sharper at work, more present with the family, and more consistent in the gym. And I'm not alone. Beam has improved over 28 million nights of sleep. So if you've been waiting for the right time to try Dream, this is it. They're offering my listeners an exclusive discount going into the new year. Go to shopbeam.com/micdrop and use the code MicDrop to get my exclusive offer for up to 40% off Beam's Dream Powder. So with my discount code MicDrop, that's all caps, all one word, you can get their best-selling Dream Powder for just $39. Seriously, think about it. How much would you pay for a truly great night of sleep? With my discount, it's about $1.25 per night. So go to shopbeam.com/MicDrop today.
So like, which is it? Do you want me to just hand you free money, or what do you want me to do with it exactly? It's not like there's not enough money. That's not the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a couple things that I would love to bring up, which is, number one is I don't think most people are asking for that. I also think that, at least for me, and I think for the overwhelming majority of people that I talk to, it's a principle thing. Maybe that doesn't matter.
No, principles matter, but I just want to know what's behind the principle. Like, you got.
I think again, there's two things I would say is that when you see problems that are affecting you day to day, I don't care if it's $10, I don't care if it's 0.00016 of the budget that's being sent. It's still being sent overseas.
It's a feeling. It's okay. So
to me that matters, though. I mean,
well, I would say my only counter to it then would be we can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. Like we can do two things at once. Like we could be trying to solve this, whatever this hard problem is that you're talking about, whatever that inflation. Okay, like so, but that doesn't mean we should have to not solve any other problems either.
No, agreed. I don't think that it has to be either or.
I thought that's exactly what you just said, though. Well, that's what I'm understanding.
How are you understanding me saying it's either?
Well, because that's what you're saying. I mean, it's like you're saying, we're dealing with things like inflation. We don't want to see any money go here until inflation's gone. I don't know. That sounds like what you mean? So as a principle, if we have any problems here, we shouldn't be doing anything overseas. That's a principle that was stated, right?
I don't understand.
That was the principle, because I asked what's behind the principle, and you're just like, well, we have these problems here. We shouldn't be sending money overseas. So the principle behind that is, as long as there's a problem to solve here, you ignore that other thing.
No. To me, the second point that I wanted to bring up is the fraud associated with it. Is that to me, I'm not of the mindset that we should not help anybody, not do anything overseas.
Yeah.
what I do see is both here in the United States and with a lot of other, entities that do funnel money overseas, is that there is massive amounts of fraud.
Yeah, I mean, we should agree with that. Well, when it's caught, you got to go after it. There's no fraud greater than the Inflation Reduction Act the Democrats passed on suspension or on their reconciliation bill. You want to talk about hundreds of billions going to like green energy companies and NGOs that were created like days before the bill passed as pass-throughs. You can't even track it at this point. As much as we'd love to do oversight on it. You'd have to pick out some specific instances of fraud on foreign aid. I'm sure it's happened, but that's an oversight issue and that's an execution issue. It's not like, and when you do oversight in Congress, the committee that does that is the Foreign Affairs Committee. They oversee the State Department and all foreign aid.
So is it fair to say that it's their fault that the oversight hasn't been executed properly?
Well, the combination, I mean, has it not been? I don't know. I'm not suggesting that because you are, but I don't have any examples of something that they missed that they should have gotten.
I mean, would you put USAID into that same category if the government is funding an NGO that's sending money overseas? And
well, yeah, I mean that's why we had this big sort of Doge was kind of part of it, but like it was mostly Rubio being like, no, we're changing. That's why we changed everything at USAID because of these problems. That's the proper way to go about it. I wouldn't just cut it out. Like you're not just going to cut it out of the budget because it still plays an important function. So let's make the function work and be properly done. That's how you should go about it.
So I guess where did the failure take place in terms of the
you're not being specific with any of it, so it's hard to like even follow you. Because tell me the failure on what exactly.
I'll use the example you mentioned, the NGOs that were stood up days before a bill was passed and received. So
the failure is Democrats. The failure is you elected Democrats to have a trifecta and have the Senate and House and presidency, and they passed whatever bill they wanted to feed the green energy. So that's the problem. Like there's literally no further explanation. It's like they did it. They did it on purpose. That's why it's important to go vote because elections matter and they have consequences. We can't even claw back the money. We try. We clawed back some of it in our reconciliation bill, but they got a lot of it out the door before Biden left office.
Forgive my ignorance on it. Is the issues that you see in Minnesota with all the Somali daycare fraud stuff that's been all over the news, is that in that same category?
Oh no, that's like I'm not an expert on what's going on with all that stuff either, but no, it's like that's state money, probably a mix of federal funds. That's a whole mess, and that it sounds like that investigation even started actually before the Trump administration. So, no, it has nothing to do with the IRA that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah.
I don't like the IRA. I'd love to blame them for it. I mean, you can still blame Democrats here. It's just different. It's just a different bill.
Yeah.
The Democrats run Minnesota, so it's pretty obvious who's engaged in this kind of fraud. But I think it's definitely more of a state issue.
Do you feel like fraud at the federal level is from a percentage standpoint of the annual take in tax revenue is an enormous problem?
Wait, I thought your question is about tax revenue?
No, it's well, sort of. It's if you take the annual tax revenue federally, mm-hmm. right, and you say what percentage of that annual tax revenue is wasted via fraud at the federal level? Do you think that's
now we need to define fraud a little bit better? Somebody has plenty of percentages on this. We estimate tens of billions in Medicare and Medicaid. This is where most of the money is. Because again, like your biggest programs are going to have the most fraud. Like we took care of a lot of that in the legislation we passed when we kept your taxes low. So the big beautiful bill, otherwise known as the Working Families Tax Cut Act. So the main goal of that was to make sure you didn't get surprised by a tax increase a month ago, and for this tax season, because that's what everybody was facing because the 2017 tax cuts were expiring. So Trump didn't want that to happen, right? But also that scores as like increasing the debt. Now we could argue on the philosophy of that and how that scored, but we still took it seriously enough where we're like, okay, well, let's find other savings and let's reform Medicaid to do that. And that gets into a longer conversation about how we reformed Medicaid, and a lot of that was, because Democrats are screaming, like, well, you're taking 12 million people off the rolls of Medicaid or kicking them off insurance. It's like, we're talking about illegal immigrants. We're talking about work requirements, like my bill that got in there is work requirements for able-bodied single adults. Like we give you pretty easy like access to this. But there's some people who are double enrolled. There's some people who don't even know they're enrolled in Medicaid and they have a job, but they're still in Medicaid. And you're like, well, that doesn't cost the government anything. Yes, it does, because a health management service is actually getting a fee for that. So, like, yeah, we could go real deep on this stuff if you want. Like, and I suppose that would be. And then there's like legit fraud. So now you're talking about breaking the law. So I think you're more talking about waste. Like there's fraud, which is the FBI will go after. And then there's waste, which we need to go after. And that's kind of like, I'll give you an example of how we just recently did that with Medicaid. There's lots of, I'd love to do it with all of it. Because again, like you can't say you care about the debt, but then don't touch my entitlements. You can't, because it's like, that's where all the money is.
What's the biggest draw in entitlements?
What do you mean? Probably Medicare.
Yeah.
Certainly, if not now, it's going to be. I think it is the biggest draw. But, Medicare and Social Security, right? Those are for our parents, grandparents. And I assume you're not that old. And class 215, you can't be that old. And so, yeah, I mean, that's the stickiest and thorniest issue that nobody wants to talk about. Everyone wants to say they're in favor of like reducing the debt, but when it comes to the hard conversations, nobody wants to have them because it involves, benefits and all sorts of things. Now, I think there's a reasonable way to have that conversation and like fight for our generation that's going to get screwed here. Because Social Security and Medicare are going bankrupt by the mid-2030s. So why?
So what happens then?
Well, the trust fund goes bankrupt and automatically, by law, benefits get cut in order to maintain the trust fund. So, because when you pay taxes, you see a certain portion of it that goes directly to the Medicare, Social Security trust funds. So that's how it's funded. But over time, since these programs were created under like FDR, over time, back then you had a very much lower life expectancy, and you also had like 6-to-1 ratio. I think they don't like totally quote me on these numbers, but they're fairly accurate. 6-to-1 ratio of like 6 workers to 1 senior. Now it's like 3-to-1. We just have an aging population because people didn't have enough kids. So you've got an aging population. You've got massive like benefits and retirement programs. That's where all the money is. It's you can find $1 billion here, $1 billion there, like in whatever random agency. It's not even making a dent. Because the trillions are in these programs. And so we took about a $1 trillion+ bite out of it in Medicaid on the big beautiful bill. Well, that's over 10 years of savings, so like from just by doing some of the things I mentioned, right? Like cleaning up how it's managed would be cleaning up the waste. I wouldn't call it fraud, because fraud is illegal, and that's an investigated, that's a judicial thing.
Would you make the distinction is that fraud is intentional?
Yeah. It has a legal definition. So we can't just throw the word out there, throwing it out. And I think that happens way too much. Call it waste if you want. Call it something you don't agree with.
Inefficiency.
Call it bureaucratic incompetence. There's a lot of things it could be, but fraud has a legal definition, so we should stick to the definition. It's illegal.
Yeah.
So, but just so we're like clear on like what we're trying to do. Are you trying to go after waste? Are you just trying to go up? Or you don't agree with it? So let's stop it. Whatever it is. It's important to get our policy discussions to have some accuracy, I think.
Is what you and I are talking about right now something that is discussed within the halls of Congress a lot?
All the time. And we all know that we could do the reforms we all know we need to do. Bush tried. Remember Bush getting slaughtered for this and throwing grandma off a cliff because he wanted to do Social Security reform? That would have saved it. That was the best. Those ideas were dreamed up by Ronald Reagan's economic advisor. He was my professor at Harvard, so I learned a lot about this issue. And yes, they had a Republican professor at Harvard. I imagine that. And he was there for like 20 years. And we had a way to solve it. And it's just such a thorny political issue because all seniors, doesn't matter Republican or Democrat, everybody gets together and they vote. And you got a lot of young people voting Democrat that are like, I'm like, guys, you're literally voting for yourself to get higher taxes so that you can transfer that immediately to your grandparents. Meanwhile, you're talking about legit things like higher costs of, let's talk about inflation and what it's done. Some things have not kept pace with inflation. They've surpassed it, right? The housing market, the healthcare, and education. So why are we voting to increase your own taxes, which is what Democrats literally want to do? I mean, they said so, right? They all voted against the big, beautiful bill. The main aspect of that was keeping your taxes low. So by definition, Democrats are saying, we are running on the platform of increasing your taxes next year. Like, it's insane. And we want to transfer that money to seniors. What? Like, that's not fair. I would hope my generation and your generation would think that. And we need solutions that I think it's not just a left versus right solution. It's like a generational solution. We have to, my generation needs to give something. The other generation has to give something. That's how that should eventually play out. If we were all objective and like unemotional about it. Yeah. But that's, it's hard to see that happening. So as Republicans, we could all agree on like, this is the reforms that were needed. If we did, we would all get voted out of office pretty damn quick. There'd be a huge sweep and it'd go right back to the way it is. That's the reality. And so there does have to be a deal that is made. There needs to be someday. And it's because this is a completely unsustainable. I mean, if you look at all the spending that people love to talk about, what we call that discretionary, the stuff we vote on every single year, it's especially as a percentage of GDP, it just actually gets lower as you look ahead. While mandatory spending, which is welfare spending, effectively, it's not all welfare spending. Like, again, it's senior benefits, it's Medicaid is welfare. There's obviously Social Security, disability insurance is welfare. But I'm not even including, by the way, veterans benefits. That's an additional cost that you're not touching.
What percentage is that? Do you know?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it's not included in what I'm talking about here is like the mandatory spending. It's like an additional huge chunk of the discretionary. That's how we end up. Because I remember these numbers because when we were kind of like facing off the Democrats on like when we had like just the House and 5 seats, and like a 5-seat majority in the House, and the Democrats had the Senate and the presidency. The one thing we were able to get done was a stand down on raising the debt ceiling, because that's like one. Some could argue it doesn't make sense to even vote on it because it's like an economic catastrophe if you don't raise it, but it's still something we can sort of hold the line on. And so when we were doing that, when we actually crunch the numbers on like savings we can demand, you're truly only talking about 11% of the budget, like, because everything else is just on autopilot. It's VA, it's military, and then it's all these other entitlement programs. People don't even like the word entitlements. I'm like, why don't you like it? It means you're entitled to it. Like, you get a certain age, you pay your taxes, like you're entitled to it. That is the point of it. But the point of them also was to keep seniors out of poverty. That was the point. And I think it has evolved and people think it's something different. And that's just a really tough conversation that nobody wants to have. And our generation won't even have it. I don't know why.
So what's the plan?
There's plenty of bills and ideas that have come across that, unfortunately, like what Bush pushed for in 2004, just mathematically, that was just Social Security reform. Wouldn't work now. There's a debt commission that's been, because there needs to be a bipartisan thing that comes out. And that's sort of the point of these commissions, to try and like politically figure that out. But I don't know. I can only tell you my plan, which is to like at least inform people of what's actually happening. Because people are like, well, the government is taking money out of the trust fund. That's what happened. That's a common thing I hear. It's like, no, that does not happen. The trust fund buys bonds and actually makes money from it because it gets an interest. So no, that's not true. It's kind of a weird accounting thing on the surface, but underneath it actually makes the trust fund stronger. So that part's not true. The truth is it's demographics. So I don't have a plan to solve demographics. The people who need more kids. I think I'm going to live longer. Should I retire later? Sure. That would be what my generation should maybe be thinking about. And your generation should be thinking about. Like, again, how old are you?
47.
Okay. Yeah. We're like, yeah. Now people in their 50s, like they've been planning on this for a while, so you got to think through all of these details. And then, you can put these programs on a better track in a number of what Medicare is the hardest because you're talking about healthcare costs generally. Because now you're talking about a whole market that is also part of the government system. That's pretty damn hard. And Social Security is hard enough. And the math behind Social Security is very easy. You twist some dials here and there, and it changes things. But the politics is incredibly difficult because you even mention that you want to reform Social Security, you're going to have a revolt. And like nobody's wearing a blue or red uniform anymore. It's just like the seniors who actually vote. They get very into this, and as they should. They're afraid of their benefits being all of a sudden erased, even though that might not even be what we're talking about. They just even hear the words, and it's like, again, that's how Bush failed so badly on it in 2004. Like, and everybody has scars from that. And it's a thorny issue. Trump has never talked about any of this, has he? He will never do it because he knows it's just a political killer. So that's why nothing gets done on this, because the people don't want it. That's the reality. The people don't want it.
Do you foresee a way out of this? I mean, I know you said you have your ideas and plans on what you're going to do, but between the debt being what it is, the entitlement program being as upside down as it is, do you, to make a prediction, like, do you see this ending well?
The only time people are going to be forced when the government's forced to solve it, because there's a date on when these trust funds like technically run out of money. That'll be an emergency situation that everyone has to figure it out at that point. So
that's the mid 230s.
Yeah, it's not until it'd be better and better. It would have been better to solve in 2004. Yeah. So, I mean, we were talking about private retirement accounts back then. God, people would be rich if they had just listened. Like everyone would have more money. It would have been way better, even with the stock market crash 4 years later. Because I mean, you know what the market's done. So it's and that was a small portion of their plan. I don't know their exact plan. I just know it from kind of reading about it. But there was a way to do it. The math doesn't even work anymore on that. So every year you wait, it gets harder.
Is crypto an option, or CBDCs, the tokenization of assets in a way where if crypto investment is high enough on the U.S. government side and it skyrockets to a certain point, I've heard theories that Trump has this plan of using crypto to wipe out the national debt. Is that something that you guys get into much?
No, that's a pretty risky bet. I don't even know how that would work.
In terms of crypto as an industry, is that something that you would say is taken seriously, favorable, unfavorable within the halls of Congress?
That's not I think it was a bigger topic of conversation in the past. I think now it's just, it's not favorable or unfavorable. It's a thing. It's a commodity. I mean, a lot of these tokens are the value of them is based on supply and demand. So that tells me that it's basically a digital commodity versus a currency. So, okay, it is what it is. You're allowed to invest in it, do what you need. I've never seen a serious argument for how crypto will play a major role in the future. I think there was a lot of that in the past, and I'm not sure we hear that much more. But it's not favorable. It's not unfavorable.
Are you familiar with the Clarity Act?
No.
I mean, it's basically if you want to call it a governing body of the way crypto can be used and utilized. I mean, the way I understand it in terms of where it could be beneficial is primarily in cross-border payments, settlements, et cetera, where instead of using like SWIFT and kind of the archaic technology of moving money from country to country or even person to person, here is having a digital blockchain rail of being able to accomplish that instantaneously, totally securely, and without several middlemen. Is that I've at least seen or heard a lot of rumblings talking about how like all of central banking sooner than later will be digitized, where there will be central bank digital currency and it'll all be digitized.
Yeah, that we definitely don't hear.
Really?
And also, I think, wouldn't you have a lot of civil liberty concerns about that if it was so easy because it would be very easy to track you if everything was digitized like that. It's kind of weird. So I'm not sure. That's not a.
It's not a front of mind.
It's not something. It would be in the Financial Services Committee, and it's not something I've heard a lot about. So
Moving on to, I don't know if Israel and Gaza and Russia, Ukraine are similar enough to package as a similar issue in terms of our involvement from your perspective, or are they different enough to segregate them?
Interesting. That's an interesting question by itself, I guess. They are similar in the sense that there's an ally. They're pretty, I don't know, they're pretty different. Like in Europe, you're dealing with, again, the first war of conquest since World War II. And wars of conquest in Europe tend to get bigger. That's just we don't even have to have say the long arm of history. Like this is within certain lifetimes, So there's plenty of reason why you want to stop that where it starts. And I think Trump has done a pretty good job of kind of handling that, in the kind of the post-Biden era. It's a huge conversation to have if we wanted to have it, but it is different because Israel is dealing with Hamas is a terrorist group attack. I mean, they're both quite different.
Yeah, I guess where they're similar though is how big of a role our government.
We're not on boots on the ground, but we support them pretty obviously, right? So yes, they're similar in that sense.
Would you say that that's an overwhelming common agreement within the halls of Congress? Is that distinction is no boots on the ground, but support to the best of our ability, and it's worth doing?
There's different opinions for each one. I mean, the Republicans tend to be more split on Ukraine, and but definitely more cohesive on supporting Israel. Democrats are less cohesive on supporting Israel and more cohesive on supporting Ukraine. So do you get a majority in both? Yes, for sure. I mean, we would stop otherwise. And people are like, and Trump has actually gone further than people realize. Sanctioned the oil companies that we needed to sanction or begging to sanction. That's hurt Russia, giving the Ukrainians more freedom to use the weapons that we actually give them. To name a couple things, they've continued presidential drawdowns, weapons sending there. So they're doing this also with like the idea of negotiation in mind. So I think it's threading a very difficult needle, and I think they're doing the best they can. Israel's they are pretty different topics. They're similar in the sense, like you mentioned, our involvement. Yes.
Yeah. I guess that's my biggest question, is just your take on how involved we should be or not. Quite a bit of money has been sent to Ukraine. I'm assuming from your perspective, you're okay with that amount?
Yeah. There's a limit to everything. I voted for one or two packages. I voted against most of them. Because the Democrats are packaged in too. Now, how would I have voted? I'm not, because they were packaged with Democrat priorities, so I was voting against them anyway. But to the broader question, it's hard to put a dollar amount. Because you don't have great options here. There's a pretend option, and I think people kind of make it up in their heads, which is like, well, I'm for peace. I'm just for that. Well, that's nice. Go write a fiction novel about it, buddy. I've literally heard that from people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm for peace. You must be for, you want to kill Ukrainians by keeping this war going. It's like, what? What are you talking about? That's not at all what's happening here. You have a crappy choice, and the choice is let a war of conquest happen from Russia and put them on the border of four more NATO countries at least. Let's say we did nothing, right? Because if you're going to analyze foreign policy, you need to analyze the counterfactual, which is doing nothing. Well, doing nothing means no stingers, no javelins. We're not training with the Ukrainians like we have been for years. Let's imagine, because you don't want to, right? You're saying they're off on their own. They're not worth defending, so why are we doing anything with them? That's the argument. Okay, so they get plowed through by the Russians, and now the Russians haven't lost as many people as they've lost. They've got a functioning military, and they also know that we don't stand up with our allies. Because Ukraine was always an ally. They weren't part of NATO. It doesn't make them not an ally. So which scenario brings you closer to actual war? It's pretty easy to make the argument that this counterfactual brings you closer to actual war. The Russians on at least with four more NATO borders in places that there's Russian-speaking populations. They're going to make the argument, just like Hitler was making, that they have to go save these other populations. It's very familiar language. This idea that we threatened him and he feels threatened. Do not fall for that. The Russians didn't even come up with that. They see it on our social media, and then they were like, "Oh, that's a great one." And then they repeat it. It's like, no, dude. NATO exercises are always defensive. The Russians have never felt threatened by it. Russian military exercise is always offensive in nature. It's see it for what it is. Like sometimes the simple answer is the simple answer. You know, it's funny how that gets muddled up. But
do you take a different approach or stance on NATO as in terms of support for it versus not than the president?
I think it's the same. I think the president plays hardball, and I think I support that general. Like it's pretty obvious what he's a maximalist negotiator. Like he likes to punch his friends a little bit. And I think it works. So that's good. But I think people then expect him to like pull out. Don't expect that. That's not what the president's doing. The president is a maximalist negotiator trying to extract what he thinks we should be getting from our allies. I think that's it's a good idea.
Would you say that's the exact same tactic with Greenland?
Yeah, I mean, it's played out that way, certainly, hasn't it? Like,
yeah, I mean,
maximalist negotiation, like, it all of a sudden just like getting to like a much more, because the maximalist negotiation tactic, which is this is very unique to Trump, obviously. It gets the conversation started much faster. There's benefits to it. Pisses a lot of people off, but he wants things wrapped up pretty quickly. If I've noticed. And so, even using threats, like he's comfortable with it. But what I'm comfortable with, I always look at actions, you know, versus these words, because people want to like focus on that, especially liberal media. It's like, God, just focus on the actions, folks. And like, he's been around long enough. You can probably see this one coming. There's a strategy here. You don't like it, but it is working. So
yeah,
it's okay to stick with it.
Yeah. As far as China, I guess on a general spectrum, the way that we interact with them and any measures or countermeasures we're taking to try to combat their, if you want to call it imperialism, and also, you know, if you want to look at Taiwan being, you know, a go-to-war red line kind of issue, what's your stance on that?
Yeah, I don't ever want Taiwan to be a go-to-war issue. What we're doing, what we need to be doing is making Taiwan just such an annoying porcupine that it doesn't become that conversation. You need to make it impenetrable. You need to make it the costs have to seriously outweigh the benefits in the Chinese mind. There's a lot of interesting ways to do that I won't talk about, but it's hard to see the American people like voting for war with China over that, but it should be easy for us to say you definitely don't want it to even happen, and there's ways to prevent it. And an investment now saves you a lot later, because into the Chinese, either you're going to war with China over it, or you've just lost access to the semiconductor industry. Both are catastrophic to your life. Yeah. So you better invest right now. That's our strategy at the moment, and you know, in a more we have become more vocal about defending Taiwan. It used to be like this. We had the strategy of what do we call? I'm like forgetting the name of it, but basically purposefully being vague about our intentions, whether we would or not. There's a term for it that escapes me right now, but you know, under Biden and Trump, they were a lot more aggressive about it, because China's also gotten a lot more aggressive. So it is what it is, but. The decision now, strategy now, should be make it impenetrable. That's possible. I mean, maritime invasions are not easy. So I don't know what the Chinese haven't really ever fought a war. So I mean the current like generation of Chinese. So it's not obvious that they'd be very good at it. You know, but let's not. Ideally, we wouldn't even get there, or they could try, and like we've got a lot of things waiting for them that they weren't suspecting, and. That would be ideal. Ideal is not like actually voting on war. That's not ideal. Yeah. We should avoid that. And you avoid it by investing now. So to say the rest of the world that's a much deeper conversation about how you battle China and all of these different spheres of influence everywhere.
Well, I think the Venezuela thing opened a lot of people's eyes to the strategy and the importance of doing so. Like, I think once a lot of those kind of onion-like layers were revealed of not just China, but even Iran, Cuba, you know, the involvement and investment that they had in Venezuela, probably driving our action there more than what we advertised.
Oh yeah. I mean, those of us who focus on it, we've always known this. I mean, they're coming in with weapons, and like Iran, Russia, the Chinese is more of an economic partner, but the Iranians, the Russians, the Cubans, they're security partners, and they want that security platform right in our backyard, just like they've always wanted it in Cuba too. So yeah, I mean, that was absolutely happening. I guess, yeah, that's not as well known in the mainstream public, but more well known now. Yeah, it's more than just being a socialist dictator. Like you're directly cooperating with drug cartels that we've now labeled as terrorists. So game on. Like it is what it is. Now in the end, it was still a judicial law enforcement operation. Some people who disagree with Trump on this see it as a technicality, but it's a pretty serious difference. But yeah, that's the policy difference, is like the fact that the Chinese had hundreds of thousands of people there. I mean, they haven't left; they're still there, but like, propping up that oil industry. Again, should we have that? And I think very recently, if not today, it was like announced that deal that Trump has been talking about. Like, ships have left the harbor of Venezuela and they're coming to the Gulf Coast to our refineries. Like, yeah, this is good. This is better than China having control over this.
Yeah.
Our refineries like Venezuelan oil. It's funny because it's annoying, but our refineries were built a long time ago, before like the shale boom, before we knew we had a ton of oil, and they're built for a different kind of oil, which is like Venezuelan oil. So it's super expensive to redo all that. That's people don't understand. Like, wait, I thought we had oil. That's why.
Yeah, interesting. Do you? Some people have made the connection, or I guess the linkage of Russia annexing Crimea and going into Ukraine, China and Taiwan is throwing Venezuela and Greenland into that same kind of category of.
No, they're different. I think these are very different subjects. All of them, really. Like the China-Taiwan thing, like I think the two arguments. There's less economic arguments for Ukraine, although it's definitely not nothing. I think like there's a ton of resources in Ukraine, actually, so it is significant. But that one's a lot more about this countering the ugly situation that I described earlier. And I think that's because you don't get a third option. I'm sorry. Like people say there should be. Well, you could say it all day long. Go write a fiction novel about it. But there's really two options. You either do or you don't. And this is what happens if you don't. So it's not a better situation. I'm sorry. I hate both situations. You understand? Like, I don't like them. It's not like we're like cheering both it's just, they're crappy. It is what it is. Taiwan's similar in the sense of like a war of conquest. Like there's a global order that we have benefited massively from, even if we don't realize it sometimes. But we have, and that order is led by us. But with Taiwan is about that, but it's about the semiconductor industry, and it'd be nice if we could just build it all of a sudden, but we cannot. So those are really crappy. Again, there's just more crappy choices. So the best way to control those crappy choices is to deter. And you don't deter, it gets into this like, I like peace through strength. I don't want to be having endless wars. It's like, well, okay, so, you got to remember the strength part. Like you can't just have the peace and then like be against any involvement anywhere. I'm sorry, it's not going to work. So the strength can't just be like, I don't know, like some people I think want it to mean like, well, no, we're strong at home. So, national defense, why do we have so many people deployed? Well, because it's forward presence. I mean, this, it's like, you get it at least once you've done it. But do you think national defense should we have just waited in Coronado, like with our guns out, kind of waiting for the Chinese to swim across? Like, that's not national defense. No, it's going and training, what they call themselves SEALs in Thailand and South Korea, in Taiwan, in the Philippines. It's building those alliances. So it's not us versus China, it's everyone versus China.
It's essentially a lesser of two evils.
It's always, yeah, and that's what policymaking is. They're trade-offs. People want to look at it and believe that there is a third button that isn't yes or no. But in the end, there's a yes or no, and all policy decisions are trade-offs, all of them. I found very few. There's like one example, which is a really strange accounting issue with Medicaid, where you can actually save money by also reducing premiums, but I won't get weird and go down a rabbit hole there. That's the one thing I've ever seen that I'm like, wow, there's no trade-offs on that. That's fucking amazing. That's just a positive outcome for everybody. Like, can't believe it. Everything is trade-offs. So like, there's going to be complaints, and like, if you're going to assess policy accurately and objectively, you got to, especially with foreign policy, definitely assess the counterfactual. Let's assess the Iraq War counterfactual. It's really popular to be like, did you deploy to Iraq? Mm-hmm. I did. Probably a couple times. I did deploy twice to Iraq, and do I want to believe that friends of mine are dead and for no reason? I don't really like believing that. I don't really like people saying that. Does that mean I would have voted for the war? I don't know. Put yourself in people's shoes back then.
Well, I think there's two things. I mean, one, it was right after 9/11.
Right after 9/11.
It's way harder for us in 2026 to understand, a panic-like desire to be preemptive in that mindset. Like it's hard to do that. But to me, the bitch of it is that when you look at the vacuum that created, specific to Iran, number one, they killed thousands of our troops. I don't know why the fuck we didn't do anything about that. Number two is that emboldened them. Now they don't have their hands full with Saddam and Iraq, and now they're supporting Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, etc. I think overall, the destabilization of the region because of our time in Iraq is significant.
That's possible. Yeah, it's like, I'm not arguing one way or the other. I'm doing like an academic. I wanted this to be an academic assessment. With Afghanistan, I think it's much more clear cut. It's like you either kill the bad guys and make sure it doesn't happen again, or you don't. Why were we in Afghanistan 20 years? What do we get out of it? Dan, as they yell at me, as I was blown up there, guys. Like, I lost friends there. What do you mean? First of all, there is no we. It was you got to be home while we were there. But I'll tell you what we got out of it. No more 9/11s. Okay, it's harder with Iraq, right? Iraq's more of an academic exercise. There's all that fallout, like you mentioned. I think the de-Baathification is probably the biggest reason for all that fallout. It should have looked, and we've learned that lesson, haven't we? Because what do we do in Venezuela?
Yeah,
that's learning lessons. We're finally starting to learn lessons, and so you'd kick out everyone in the government and the military. Like, what do you think's going to happen? Now, the counterfactual to Iraq, which is an interesting thought experiment, is like, all right, well, certain things did happen, which was Libyans and the Iranians put out, and they were serious about it, fatwa that they would not have nuclear weapons. Because remember, we thought Saddam had nuclear weapons, and it turns out Saddam wanted us to think that because he wanted not to deter us. He didn't think Bush would actually invade. He was more scared of the Ayatollah in Iran. He was signaling, and so kind of screwing with American heads, I think, who were coming off the heels of 9/11, and wanted us to think that because he really wanted the Iranians to think that. And so once the Iranians so now let's do counterfactual. Let's say we never did anything. Iranians will never get rid of their nuclear weapons program. They'll get a nuclear bomb because they don't like the Iraqis and Saddam Hussein. They also don't like Israel. Pretty quickly, I think you see what happens from there, right? How Turkey and Iraq and Israel, like everybody just got nukes in the Middle East. Again, is that an argument for it? No, but it's like, it's an argument for doing objective hindsight thinking.
Yeah.
That's why I just like put that out there. Do a counterfactual assessment because it's pretty easy to see how the counterfactual ends up in nuclear war. I don't know if that's better. So it's, that's trade-offs.
Yeah. You mentioned classifying cartels as terrorist entities. It's been something that you've spent a fair bit of time on. I've heard a lot of people kind of pose the question, if we were willing to do what we did in Venezuela, why have we not done similar actions in Mexico? I'm curious, do you agree with that? If not, why not? And what do you think the long game is in terms of our ability to combat them?
Yeah, I mean, massively different. Because we're already killing them along with the Mexicans. I mean, we're not doing it, but like we work with them a lot. There's a new administration in Mexico that's much better to work with over the past year. So there's a lot of good timing here. You got a Trump administration that's a little bit more direct about it. It's not like we were doing nothing with Biden. We were, but a lot more. There's two things that have happened. Trump is obviously more aggressive on it. I mean, I've been talking about this since 2021 when I introduced the AUMF against the cartels. I wanted this conversation to be happening 4 years ago, more. But Mexico is like, you have to look at Mexico kind of like Colombia in the 90s. That's the best way to think about it. Like, the president of Mexico is not an illegitimate leader. Maduro was a literal criminal with a bounty on his head who stole the election, very obviously. So these are just massively different situations. And like, you're going to lose all the cooperation we are doing with the Mexicans if you just start bombing places. Also, what we did in Venezuela was very specific. We caught their leader. Like, so I don't even know if you can compare the two, because what are we actually? What do you mean necessarily? Like, you mean unilateral strikes against cartels in Mexico, right? So
yeah, I mean, what I've heard more than anything from a principle standpoint is, initially at least, you hear this involvement in bombing of the drug boats, and the talk. Again, I know action and talk maybe didn't align ideally, but the lead up to doing that, it was primarily advertised as being done because it's a counter narcotic, is that all of these drugs are coming out of Venezuela and they're killing American people. Mm-hmm. You could make that same argument with, if you were to target cartels in Mexico in that same way
but you'd be doing it inside their territory. It's a massive difference. Again, with a legitimate government, but it's totally corrupt in many ways, but it is voted in. They're also our neighbor and biggest trading partner. So these are just like worlds apart situations. And also, the Mexicans are working with us. I know it's not obvious because you have to understand Mexican politics here. For whatever reason, it's not like Colombia, where it's very normal to have a bunch of gringos there helping train their special forces. We've been doing it for 25 plus years. We amped it up a lot in Plan Colombia when I was living there. So I know these situations pretty well because I grew up in them. The politics in Mexico is very delicate. That's why we've never made a lot of progress there. And it's time to rip that Band-Aid off. And we have an administration under Sheinbaum that gets it a lot more. Just take what she says in public with a grain of salt, because what's happening in action is very different, and it's good. It's like what you want. So you'd fuck it all up if you just started bombing stuff, is what I'm saying. Okay. They'd be like, screw you. I thought we were partners in this. You just bombed our country. What the hell? I mean, we didn't even do that in Venezuela until obviously we got Maduro, but these drug boats are in international waters. And they weren't just ones coming out of Venezuela, they're coming out of Colombia too. So there's, I know in the general sense, people just lump all this stuff together, but you can't. You got to distinguish between each of these actions and also what future actions make sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even nuanced. It's big picture difference.
It's huge. Yeah, I haven't even gotten to the nuances yet. It's
no, I understand.
It's we've got a whole plan on how to take out the Mexican cartels. And honestly, the other reason you might not see a lot of bombings is because, bomb what exactly? It's this is an insurgency. That's a better way to describe what's happening. It's a terrorist and narco insurgency. That's effectively what this is. And there's ways to root that out, but it's like a 10, 20-year plan. Yeah. And it starts with what we're doing now. We're better partnerships and just being consistent. Yeah. And we don't have enough time. We spend so much time on other stuff. Yeah. I can tell you about the whole cartel plan, but I'm not sure. We're going there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, I understand. And again, it's just, seeing people ask questions and wanting to get your take on it.
I would say my basic take is it's much better news than I think you realize as far as the future fight against the cartels. Yeah. Does that mean we're going to finally get an operation down there and we're going to get shoot? Nah, the Mexicans are just very staunchly against this. Yeah. But we have a lot of relationships with them that I don't think people appreciate or realize that are out there.
Yeah. You mentioned the kind of full insurgency. I've seen comparisons of what's going on up in Minnesota with a lot of the ICE protests being organized in a very similar fashion. Have you read or seen that, and what's your take on what's going on up there?
Yeah, it's across the country. It probably is. I mean, all protests are organized, if that's the question. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's been
they're very good at it in Minneapolis, aren't they? Black Lives Matter started, all of the crap started there. It's some people are just looking for something. It seems like to me, and it sucks being an ICE agent in that situation. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I don't like seeing what happened and these shootings, and because it's not good for ICE. It's not good for the president wants more people deported. It's bad for that, and it sucks for the people who got shot. And it's like there's no good parts of this situation. You know, it's just it sucks. A lot of statements have been made, and like seems like there's all this like new ways forward that I'm not exactly familiar with what that means yet. There's just a lot's happened, like these conversations between Trump and Walz and also the mayor. So it looks like there's going to be less of a footprint. It seems like they're just pulling it back, it's just getting too heated. That's what it looks like from the political angle. Yeah, it's just not great. It's you know. Somehow Obama managed to deport like a lot more people, and maybe that's a good strategy to follow. Watched a video of Obama like explaining that logic to Democrats. I was like, that's a good spokesperson. We should use him because he uses this. He's the same logic I always use because I'm always trying to make an argument that's not just popular with Republicans. I want it to be like understandable to independents too. I'm not just trying to throw red meat at you, and I know that's what you want. And eventually, it's like, if you don't get it, you're like, I don't like you. I don't know why, but I don't like it. Well, no, you should want good arguments. I've never lost a battle to Democrats. I don't know why people come at me from the right. But good arguments are like taking them, you know, understanding where they're at, and then focusing on that, and then using the best of your logic to get them to a certain place. And you're not going to win over a lot of Democrats, but you will win over independents. And look, we make a basic rule of law argument, like do we enforce our laws or not? Can't really say no to that. And then also, what about, you have compassion, but what about compassion for the people who wait in line around the world? What about compassion for them? So, I mean, that's the argument I've always made. Even Obama would make that argument. It's a good argument.
Yeah.
You can't be angry. You can't be like conservative. Just don't be angry about it. Like that's a good way to get independence on your side. And you need that because like you do not want another 4 years of left-wing ruling. I want to win the arguments.
Yeah.
So this is just one of those cases where I think it seems like the administration doesn't feel like they're winning the political argument. They're backing down. I don't know. We can all armchair quarterback the ICE like tactics and stuff.
Yeah, I wasn't there, you know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have any regrets?
Like in like big regrets or like small regrets?
Well, politically,
I mean, I was like, we went over some of my, like, I would consider these small regrets. I should have tweeted that. Like, okay, sure, right. But as far as like giant regrets, like real ones, no. I would have still joined the SEAL teams knowing what I know now. I still would have gone on that op knowing what I know now. I'm not a really big fan of going back in time and changing history either. Who knows what happens in the multiverse? But why have regrets? You know, small ones, sure.
Yeah.
Kind of some things we went over.
Anything that I didn't ask you that I should have?
I think we went over enough. There's plenty, like you know. But we spent a lot of time on certain things that, you know, probably could spend more on like whatever. We could talk for hours about a million things. I think we're good.
Yeah. I do want to thank you for coming on. I do really appreciate you taking the time, and it's been great to sit down with you and finally meet you.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. It's honors here as well, man. That's why I came up here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So, 'cause I think you're a good, steady. Somebody I respect in this space.
I appreciate it.
I'll sit down with people I don't respect, but I'll tell them that.
Yeah.
But
I appreciate it, and likewise. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you listened to the whole thing, and if you didn't, you know, you can choke yourself. And until next time, this is Mic Drop.